Chapter 1336. Since Xue Feng had the bloodline of the wilderness, his mother must have been a desolate slave. Perhaps she was still alive. Yi Qinghan looked at Xue Feng with pity in his eyes. Regardless of whether Xue Feng recognized him or his father, he would still treat Xue Feng as a citizen of the wilderness. Xue Feng greets your majesty and marshals well. Xue Feng was handsome, tall, and domineering. He had the aura of a citizen of the wilderness. He was definitely not an ordinary young master. There was a kind of fighting spirit in his bones that was especially eye-catching. His voice sounded as if he had lived for thousands of years. There was a hint of melancholy in his eyes. No wonder he was the most handsome man in the 9 Emperors' continent and was sought after by many ladies. Cousin, we are outside the palace. Don't be so formal. I am visiting incognito. Cough. The 9th prince hurriedly stepped forward and helped Xue Feng up. His tone was filled with pride. Yi Qinghan jumped down from the war wolf and put his hands behind his back. His dark eyes looked at Xue Feng, filled with different emotions. Xue Feng noticed that Yi Qinghan's emotions were filled with pity and affection like that of an elder. He lowered his head shyly. Facing Yi Qinghan, there was a sense of submission in his bones. There was even a kind of excitement in his heart. There was a voice telling him not to profane the person in front of him. Sir, you must be tired from the journey. My father has already prepared food and wine in the mansion. Please follow me. Xue Feng gestured with his hand. Yi Qinghan replied with a hoarse voice. He nodded and said, Your Majesty, please. 10,000 snow wolf riders galloped toward the center of the 9 Emperors' continent under the escort of the army. Past the 9 Emperors' continent was the auction house. There were many people on the road who seemed to be rushing there. Some even followed the army for safety reasons. However, the 9th prince did not chase them away to show his benevolence. After entering a city, Yi Qinghan ordered the snow wolf cavalry to move forward slowly while he led the 9th prince and the rest of the crazy sect to teleport to the center of the 9 Emperors' state, the residence of the 9 Emperors. The residence of the 9 Emperors looked very ordinary, but it was very majestic. There were only 2 senile guards around, and they were only there to guard the door. The residence was not big, and it looked more like an ordinary family. Occasionally, a few young men and women would come out of the red door, and they were all wearing plain clothes. No one would believe that this was the residence of the 9 Emperors. My father is used to being thrifty and never likes to be extravagant and wasteful. Your Majesty, please don't be angry. Xue Feng said with a smile. I understand royal uncle's temper. Let's go in. The 9th prince looked at Yi Qinghan and spoke in a questioning tone. Yi Qinghan nodded and then signaled to Shi Ge and the rest with his eyes. They scattered around the residence of the 9 Emperors and did not allow any suspicious people to come close. This was because this dark and gloomy residence was actually hiding a living desolate slave. Xue Feng might not be the only descendant of the great wilderness. Yi Qinghan stepped into the residence of the 9 Emperors with excitement and anticipation. The path was rugged and extended, and it was very simple. There were pavilions on both sides of the path, and hundreds of flowers bloomed. It was very beautiful. The buildings in the residence were not very tall, and they looked like the buildings of the great wilderness. It seemed that the 9 Emperors loved the desolate slave very much. Otherwise, he would not have given up the huge empire for her and decorated his residence like this. The 9 Emperors did not come out to welcome them, but many experts appeared in the residence where the family gathered. They looked at the entrance curiously, as if they wanted to see the current emperor and the left marshal, who was at the peak of his power. Brother, brother. A girl's clear and melodious voice sounded. Yi Qinghan looked over and saw a girl about 11 or 13 years old. Her hair was tied up in a ponytail, and she was dressed very simply. The light in her eyes was very pure, and she was full of spiritual energy. However, she was actually a mortal. She did not cultivate at all, and there were no fluctuations of divine power. Yi Qinghan looked at the little girl and almost lost control of his emotions. His fingertips trembled, and his eyes were filled with astonishment. Great wilderness spiritual body. A rare sovereign treasured body, this. Yi Qinghan said to himself hoarsely in his heart, and he fiercely suppressed his excitement. Such a sovereign treasured body could at least nurture an expert at the level of Huangpeng, an ultimate sovereign, which was only second to the realm lord. If Huangpeng, the dragon's resentment, and the others had not supported him back then, the great wilderness domain would not have lasted for so long. Without a doubt, the 9 emperors would not allow her to cultivate such a sovereign treasured body. Not only was he afraid that her identity would be exposed, but he also did not want her to threaten the rule of the divine world of Snow Country. Letting her be immortal for the rest of her life was the best choice. Xue Feng looked at the little girl, and his eyes were full of doting. Perhaps it was because the family rules did not allow her to cultivate, and he always felt that he owed her. Originally, she could have endless years, but now, she only had a few decades. Emperor Spirit, didn't father not allow you to come out? Why are you disobedient again? Xue Feng asked gently. It's so boring. I'm the only one in the courtyard all day. Father and mother have no time to accompany me. When I heard that His Majesty came, I wanted to come and see. The Snow Emperor Spirit stuck out her tongue and said. Yi Qinghan looked at the Snow Emperor Spirit, and his eyes were full of love. It was a kind of love that transcended everything, just like the love a father had for his daughter. The father of the Great Desolation and the Great Desolation Spirit met. When the two met, they had an extraordinary feeling in their hearts. The Snow Emperor Spirit stared at Yi Qinghan, and her eyes were full of admiration and respect, but more than that, she was happy, although she did not know that Yi Qinghan was the father of the Great Desolation. She was a very cute girl, but like a bird in a golden cage, she was always bound. Maybe it was to protect her, but for her, it was also a kind of torture. She was not allowed to go out on normal days, and no one could stand it. But she had endured it for 7 or 8 years, and even felt that it was natural. Yi Qinghan and the Snow Emperor Spirit looked at each other, and it was as if they had known each other for thousands of years, which surprised Xue Feng. I like the aura on my brother's body. The Snow Emperor Spirit looked at Yi Qinghan excitedly and said. Yi Qinghan smiled and reached out to hold the Snow Emperor Spirit's hand. He said gently, you are also very cute. In the future, you will definitely be one of the strongest girls. I can't cultivate. The Snow Emperor Spirit said, feeling wronged. Yi Qinghan smiled and did not explain. Instead, he followed Xue Feng and the 9th prince into the main hall of the 9th emperor's residence. He looked around, trying to find the mother of the Snow Emperor Spirit, the desolate slave. After searching for a long time, he did not find her. His divine sense began to spread out unscrupulously, and finally, he found a young and beautiful girl in a quiet courtyard. Her body was emitting a faint but very weak power of desolation. Yi Qinghan used his divine sense to observe the girl. There were no other maids or guards in the courtyard, and she was the only one who was fiddling with the flowers and spirit fruits in the courtyard. He was sure that this person was the desolate slave, and she had survived by coincidence. Perhaps it was because of her kindness and gentleness that the 9th emperor gave up fighting for the throne and settled down in a corner. Chapter 1337. Yi Qinghan secretly found the desolate slaves, but he did not show any extreme reaction. Although he was anxious to know how the survivors of the great wilderness lived in the bitter desolate prison, he had waited for so long that his heart was as steady as a rock. In the main hall, there was a dignified middle-aged man. He was even more powerful than the Snow Marshal. He had a square face and unparalleled vigor. His eyes were deep, and the aura of an emperor was not inferior to that of the previous emperor. In fact, he was even stronger and more respectable. His hair was as black as ink, and his eyes were shining. He gave off a kind and wise feeling. The moment Yi Qinghan stepped into the main hall, he was attracted by this person. He felt a sense of vigilance deep in his heart. He felt that if there was anyone in the snow country who could ruin his plans, it would definitely be Xue Jiuhuang. Xue Jiuhuang watched the ninth prince and the others enter the main hall, but he did not pay much attention to them. Instead, he looked down at Yi Qinghan, as if he wanted to see through him. The main hall was not big, but it had a vicissitude ancient charm. The pressure was very heavy, and the hall was silent. Even the breathing could be heard. Xue Jiuhuang did not speak, and even the ninth prince did not dare to be arrogant. The left marshal has single-handedly controlled the holy city. He suppressed the holy city by himself, brought order to the chaos, and suppressed 2 sovereign kings. I thought he was an old wise man, but I did not expect him to be a sovereign king of the younger generation. I am impressed. After a long time, Xue Jiuhuang slowly stood up. His voice was like thunder, hoarse and deep. It was very comfortable to listen to. However, Yi Qinghan did not feel comfortable. This was because he felt that Xue Jiuhuang was suspicious and vigilant. Although he was not the previous emperor, he was a direct descendant of the imperial family. He naturally did not want the authority of the imperial family to fall into the hands of an outsider. It was all thanks to the imperial clan's elders and the many ministers working together to protect the imperial clan's orthodoxy and uphold the late emperor's decree. Otherwise, with this general's ability, how could I have intimidated Mu Yunfeng and Ji Gu, 2 great supreme kings? Therefore, I feel very guilty about the 9th emperor's praise. I do not dare to accept it. Yi Qinghan bowed slightly and explained in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. It's not easy to do this. I can only do this much when I go back. Since my brother's last wish is for little Nine to be the emperor, it cannot be changed by outsiders. This is the will of the royal family. I thank you on behalf of the royal family for your loyalty. Xue Nine Emperor stared at Yi Qinghan and said calmly. Your Highness is too polite. This is what this general should do. Yi Qinghan cupped his fists and replied. Take a seat. There's nothing much to entertain, just a simple banquet. Little Nine, since you're the emperor, don't just enjoy life. You have to learn how to govern the country. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask the left general. If you need help, inform Imperial Uncle and I'll do my best to help. Xue Nine Emperor looked at the 9th prince. He did not treat him as an emperor, but as a nephew. This was a supreme authority, but the 9th prince did not dare to complain. Yes. Don't worry, Imperial Uncle. I won't let you down. The 9th prince quickly nodded and replied. Xue Nine Emperor was very satisfied with the 9th prince's humility. He was afraid that the 9th prince would be arrogant after becoming the emperor. It seemed that the previous emperor's decision was correct. Finally, Xue Nine Emperor looked at the Snow Emperor's spirit. A cold light flashed in his eyes as he said hoarsely, Go back. Who let you out? The Snow Emperor's spirit was so scared that her face turned pale. She kept retreating and wanted to leave the hall, but Yi Qinghan stopped her. Yi Qinghan frowned and asked seriously, Your Highness, you're so strict with such an adorable and obedient princess. I feel like I've known her for a long time. If you don't mind, I'm willing to accept her as my disciple and take her as my goddaughter. What do you think? Yi Qinghan asked seriously. My daughter is clumsy and has no talent in cultivation. You think too highly of her. Let her leave. Xue Nine Emperor's aura changed and he said firmly. His tone was overbearing and there was no room for negotiation. The corners of Yi Qinghan's mouth curled up into a smile. He gradually released her hand and signaled for her to leave first. In the end, even Xue Feng was driven out of the hall by Xue Nine Emperor. Only Yi Qinghan, Xue Nine Emperor, and the 9th prince had a simple meal in the hall. At the dinner table, the ninth emperor beat around the bush and secretly warned Yi Qinghan not to threaten the emperor, to order his vassals around, to influence the will of the imperial family, and to blaspheme the dignity of the imperial family. Yi Qinghan cleverly answered all of his questions, and the ninth prince did not want to offend Yi Qinghan. Furthermore, Yi Qinghan had been very respectful to him from the beginning to the end. He would always ask for the ninth prince's opinion and did not leave any loopholes. Shui Nine Emperor was very satisfied with Yi Qinghan's performance. I still have one more thing on my mind. Fifth brother, I want to know who assassinated him. Do you have any clues? Shui Nine Emperor's eyes flashed with murderous intent as he asked coldly. Yi Qinghan clenched his fists and pretended to be angry. We don't even need to investigate to know that it was done by the master of the divine sect. Other than him, who else could have forged the imperial army commander's decree? Other than him, who else could have killed Commander Shui without a sound? But we can't find any clues or excuses, so we can't avenge Commander Yun. Shui Nine Emperor was silent for a long time. He crushed the cup in his hand. The coldness in his eyes was very oppressive. The ninth prince kept quiet out of fear. This was the real power of the emperor. The legends were true. If Shui Nine Emperor did not withdraw from the fight for the throne, the previous emperor would not have been able to become emperor. Yi Qinghan's face was filled with anger as he continued, that night, my left commander's residence and all the ministers loyal to His Majesty, including Commander Shui, were attacked. If someone in my residence did not see through the master of the divine sect's identity, the left commander's residence would have been razed to the ground. The master of the divine sect is too arrogant and does not put the imperial family in his eyes. However, they are deeply rooted in the imperial family and I am not strong enough to fight against them. I hope that the ninth emperor can help me. Even if we cannot avenge Commander Shui, we should let the divine sect know that the imperial family's power is not to be blasphemed. Boom! Shui Nine Emperor's cup powder turned into the sharpest hidden weapon and pierced through the door. His murderous intent rose. He suddenly stood up and roared, Divine sect, did I give you too much face? Do you think that you can bully the imperial family just because there is no one else? Since you don't give me face, don't blame me for being ruthless. Ninth Emperor, please calm down. Yi Qinghan stood up and cupped his fists. How could Shui Nine Emperor calm down? He had the best relationship with Commander Shui when he was young. Now that Commander Shui's body was still cold, he could not take revenge. Yi Qinghan bowed and said, actually, what I am most worried about is that the master of the divine sect will take action against His Majesty. This time, we have been very careful along the way and have brought the army with us. The left commander's residence has sent out all the experts, but we still cannot guarantee His Majesty's safety. Therefore, I beg His Majesty to stay in the ninth emperor's residence and wait for me to bid for the pseudo-world artifact and give it to His Majesty. The divine sect is really daring. They even dare to assassinate His Majesty. Is there anything they don't dare to do? Shui Nine Emperor's eyes flashed coldly as his murderous intent rose. He clenched his fists and said, since you are so crazy, I will give you a chance. We can settle the old and new debts together so that I can uproot the divine sect. Chapter 1338. Yi Qinghan looked at Shui Nine Emperor's rage and sneered in his heart. He had put in so much effort just for Shui Nine Emperor to help him suppress the divine sect and get rid of the assassin organization, Heaven. Kill with a borrowed knife. Yi Qinghan waited for Shui Nine Emperor to propose his plan. As expected, Shui Nine Emperor said coldly, this time, I will lure the snake out of its hole. I will disguise myself as Little Nine and catch them all. Yi Qinghan looked at Shui Nine Emperor with admiration. He obviously liked such a ruthless character. The more ruthless and strong, the better. Ninth Emperor, this plan is too dangerous for you. I originally planned to put His Majesty in the mansion and be the bait myself. Yi Qinghan said deliberately. Shui-9 Emperor was not afraid of such danger. He snorted and said indifferently, "How can you catch a tiger cub if you don't enter the tiger's den? This king has climbed a mountain of blades and plunged into a sea of fire. What kind of danger has this king not taken? Why would I care about a small divine sect? Your Highness is indeed worthy of your reputation. I am impressed. Since your Highness is willing to take the risk, your plan should be similar to mine. I have transferred all the experts from the left marshal's residence and prepared to fight to the death with the divine sect. We also need to protect the dignity of the imperial family. If your Highness is willing to help, our chances of success will be higher." Yi Qinghan said with an excited expression as he bowed. Shui-9 Emperor's majestic aura radiated in all directions. He moved slowly and 10,000 techniques followed him. I, Shui-9 Emperor, came to power when I was 18 years old. I have been in seclusion for tens of thousands of years. However, the divine world of Shui country is still under my control. I have more men of sacrifice than the left marshal's residence. Shui-9 Emperor's aura was very strong. His words were arrogant and commanding. If it was an ordinary person, they would definitely submit. Yi Qinghan naturally would not reject Shui-9 Emperor as a pawn. The people from the left marshal's residence were all his brothers. He could not bear to see any of them die. Ninth Emperor, what if the divine sect notices something wrong and does not dare to take action? Yi Qinghan asked. Shui-9 Emperor sneered and said hoarsely, shifting the blame. All I need is an excuse. Ruthless indeed. He had the same idea as the divine bird. Yi Qinghan clenched his fist. He did not expect Shui-9 Emperor to be so decisive. Once he wanted to take action, he had no scruples. This was a country's weapon. Unsheath. As your Highness orders. Yi Qinghan bowed and replied. With Shui Jiuhuang's support, he wasn't afraid of the divine sect. No matter how hard they would be able to bite through them. The Ninth Snow Emperor ordered someone to make a human skin mask. It was very detailed and exquisite, and it was exactly the same as the Ninth Prince's. The Ninth Snow Emperor also imitated the Ninth Prince's every move. However, the Ninth Snow Emperor's royal aura was much stronger than the Ninth Prince's. Shrinking his bones and changing his physical body, Shui-9 Emperor became the real Ninth Prince. He had a strong royal aura and looked more like an emperor than the Ninth Prince. The Ninth Prince looked at Shui-9 Emperor in a daze. Even he felt ashamed. This kind of emperor was a real emperor. He was just a puppet emperor who only knew how to enjoy life. However, he did not dare to speak nonsense. Perhaps he felt sorry for Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan was loyal to him, but he sent people to assassinate Yi Qinghan. At this time, he wanted to give Yi Qinghan more trust. He felt that having a loyal and powerful assistant minister would save him a lot of trouble. The Ninth Prince was probably the type of person who was lacking in ambition. Shui Feng, bring His Majesty to rest in the residence. Do not leave the inner courtyard. Do not tell anyone that His Majesty is in the residence. Just say that I am in seclusion and no one is to disturb me. Shui-9 Emperor said sternly. Yes, Father. Father. Shui Feng immediately walked in from outside the palace and replied respectfully. Yi Qinghan smiled as he looked at Shui-9 Emperor's large group of death warriors. They were all powerful people with terrifying cultivation. There were no less than 20 of them, and more than 100 of them were at the peak of the giant god realm. They were all hidden among the Snow Wolf Riders. The rest of the Snow Wave Riders were placed in the 9 Emperor residence. Let's go. We will go directly to the auction house. Shui-9 Emperor stood in the middle of the army and said in a low voice. Yi Qinghan rode on the huge snow wolf, protecting the dragon palanquin as they sped towards the auction house. Many experts from the left marshal's residence were also protecting the dragon palanquin. It was obvious that the emperor was sitting inside. Spies were flying in all directions. Eagles were crying, but there was no killing intent. The divine sect had probably started to gather information. Feeling the spy's aura, Yi Qinghan was not surprised. Instead, he was happy. He was afraid that the divine sect would not make a move. When the auction house heard that the emperor and left marshal were coming, the house master personally led the army to welcome them. "Greetings, your majesty." "Greetings, left marshal." The auction house master was full of smiles as he led a group of powerful elders and bowed. "Greetings, senior house master. Your majesty must be tired from the journey. Can you arrange for a rest at the relay station?" Yi Qinghan got off the snow wolf's back and said in a dignified manner. "This old man has already prepared the relay station. Come with me quickly." The house master was old and doddering. He was very kind and had the demeanor of an immortal. His brows were full of vigor, and his aura was awe-inspiring. "Thank you, House Master Mu." Yi Qinghan cupped his fists and said. "Mister, you are too polite. It is the Mu family's honor to serve your majesty and Mr. Zhua." The old house master of the Mu family immediately bowed and replied. The auction house was a super conglomerate second only to the Wang family. The Mu family's status in the Snow Nation and God realm might not be as high as the Wang family's, but in the Seven Realms, the Mu family's status was much higher than the Wang family's. Xue Zhehuang did not say anything. In terms of wisdom, the house master of the Mu family was definitely at the super almighty level. His identity could be seen from his words and actions. Ling Huanyu lowered his head and didn't say anything. He was relatively famous in the crowd, and it was easy for people to recognize him. Moreover, there were some old acquaintances in the Mu family. Although they weren't ranked in the top 5 supreme kings, their cultivation and fame definitely wouldn't lose out to them. The Mu family's Mu Junsheng, the auction house's young house master, was like a god. However, he only liked to take care of the auction house and rarely competed with outsiders. Therefore, he was not in the top 5 supremes. However, many people knew that once he made a move, he would definitely not be weaker than a supremes. "Mr. Zhua, I am worried that the Mu family will recognize me. Once I am exposed, the divine sect will definitely find out." Ling Huanyu transmitted his voice in a low voice. Yi Qinghan frowned. People were afraid of fame, and pigs were afraid of being fat. This pig was too fat. Who in the world did not know that? "When we reach the relay station, don't come out. Wait for the auction to start," Yi Qinghan said indifferently. At this moment, the divine bird and Xian Yanxue left the army and moved towards the southwest. Yi Qinghan looked at their departing figures and said to Tong Tong, "Follow them. Don't let anything happen to them. If they are in danger, don't do anything. Come back to me immediately." "Okay." Tong Tong had been contaminated by the divine bird's thoughts these days. He was also much more optimistic and was no longer that stubborn. Chapter 1339. The divine bird had gone somewhere with Xian Yanxue, and Tong Tong was following behind them. Yi Qinghan wasn't worried. No matter how strong a person was, it would take a long time to kill Tong Tong. There was enough time for him to help. After that, Yi Qinghan brought Xue Zhehuang into the relay station to rest. After some discussion, Yi Qinghan finally notified the Wang family. The Wang family had suffered a loss at the hands of the divine sect, and they had long wanted revenge. Now that Wang Zhongjuan knew that they were going to uproot the divine sect, he excitedly brought dozens of super experts from the God of Fortune City to the auction house. He was prepared to cooperate with Yi Qinghan to defeat the divine sect. Most importantly, he wanted to obtain the pseudo-world artifact, or at least buy its materials. Xiaoye quietly appeared and hid in an inn. It was only one street away from the relay station that Yi Qinghan was in. Yi Qinghan and Xiaoye looked across the street and smiled faintly. The relay station was heavily guarded, but it seemed a bit loose. The soldiers all exuded a kind of arrogance, as if no one dared to attack the relay station. These unconscious actions would naturally be remembered by others. Yi Qinghan's eyes were blurred. His divine sense roamed around, looking for traces of the divine sect and heaven's assassins. However, he didn't find anyone from heaven. Instead, he found some strange movements in the fragrance pavilion. Could it be the beautiful sky pavilion? Yi Qinghan's lips curled. No matter where the assassin came from, as long as he made a move, divine sect would not be able to escape responsibility. Even if they were unrelated, he would still frame them. Even if Yantian Pavilion didn't make a move, he would find someone from hell to do it. He would pretend to be heaven's assassins and frame heaven. Tap, 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 Yi Qinghan's fingertips tapped on the wooden planks of the balcony, then returned to his room to cultivate. Large amounts of heavenly treasures and divine materials were swallowed. The entire relay station exuded a thick divine aura and heavenly spiritual energy. The supreme fluctuations grew stronger, but they were blocked by the array outside the relay station. The outside world didn't know that Yi Qinghan was crazily attacking the bottleneck of the supreme stage. Xue Jiuhuang's room was right next to Yi Qinghan's. At this moment, he opened his eyes in shock. Looking at Yi Qinghan's room, his hair stood on end. He felt extremely threatened. What a powerful martial Zhua. This old man has underestimated you. I thought you were an intelligent expert, but I didn't expect you to be proficient in both the pen and the sword. You have already reached the peak of both. Xue Nine Emperor's eyes were filled with worry. If Yi Qinghan truly supported the ninth prince, the empire would definitely be stronger than before. They would no longer be restricted by the other superpowers. They would be able to take down the Archaean sect, destroy heaven and hell, and then destroy half of the world's largest financial group. Then, the divine nation's royal family would definitely dominate the empire. I hope you don't disappoint this old man. If you use the Son of Heaven to order his vassals around, this king will clear the monarch's rules and kill the treacherous officials. Inside the room, Yi Qinghan's blood vessels were clearly visible. Divine power flowed and the room was flooded with precious light. All the spirit pets in his body benefited from it and were frantically devouring divine power. The little money grubber woke up from his muddle-headedness. His belly was so big that it was almost round. The little money grubber was pregnant. He didn't even know if this strange creature was oviparous or viviparous. Ah! Oh my God! Pregnancy is so painful. The little money grubber stretched and ran to Yi Qinghan's side. She looked left and right, but she couldn't find the divine bird. Yi Qinghan didn't have time to pay attention to her and allowed her to jump up and down. Where is that bitch bird? The little money grubber asked in a muffled voice. It went to earn milk powder for your child. Yi Qinghan didn't even open his eyes. He divided his divine sense into several parts and said in a low voice. That's more like it. The little money grubber was finally satisfied. Yi Qinghan fell silent again. He formed a seal with his palms and the 8 trigram seal appeared in front of his chest and spun at a high speed. The god-slaying eagle and the little chaotic beast in his body benefited the most. The genes of the 2 divine beasts were changed. The desolate divine power rolled and rolled in their bodies and rushed directly into their blood vessels. Boom! 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 The little beast and the god-slaying eagle quickly absorbed the divine power to strengthen themselves. However, Yi Qinghan's divine power was too majestic. It was like a boundless sea. The god-slaying eagle and the little chaotic beast couldn't withstand the surging divine power in Yi Qinghan's body and were forced out. After the 2 divine beasts were forced out of their bodies, they stood at the side in a daze. They looked at Yi Qinghan's black hair dancing wildly. His divine power was swift and fierce. The snow elemental divine power almost froze time and space. The little money grubber was so frozen that she escaped from the room. The entire relay station couldn't withstand the pressure from Yi Qinghan's body. At this moment, Xue Jiuhuang opened his eyes slightly. He waved his hand gently and the cold air that froze time and space quickly dispersed. The entire relay station became unusually warm. Boom! At this moment, Yi Qinghan burst forth with an even colder snow elemental divine power. The bottleneck of the high-to-high tier was broken by a thunderous force. A surge of divine power rushed into the Star River and spread in all directions. However, Xue Jiuhuang rushed out of the room and released an even more ferocious divine power to envelop Yi Qinghan's room. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't break through Yi Qinghan's defense. Xue Jiuhuang was too powerful. He was definitely stronger than Martial Snow. He was stronger than anyone below the Realm Lord. Even Little Yu wasn't a match for him. Yi Qinghan quickly withdrew his divine power. He could feel that Xue Jiuhuang was helping him. Otherwise, the relay station would be destroyed. Hua! Yi Qinghan's aura became even more charming. He was like a god. He stood up gently and pushed open the door. When he saw Xue Jiuhuang staring at him expressionlessly, he couldn't help but smile bitterly and say, "Thank you, Ninth Emperor, for taking action personally. Otherwise, the innocent would have been hurt. You are very strong. Not bad. However, you overestimate yourself. When you are breaking through, you are not allowed to cultivate in the city. Don't hurt the innocent." Xue Jiuhuang warned indifferently. "Yes. Thank you, Ninth Emperor, for your reminder." Yi Qinghan smiled bitterly and shook his head. The power that erupted from breaking through the bottleneck this time was beyond his imagination. He thought that he could control it by himself. However, it was obvious that the amount of divine power in his body was beyond his imagination. Xue Jiuhuang was a man of few words. After he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Yi Qinghan clenched his fist. He felt that this punch could destroy the body of a low-level supreme god. Even if his opponent was at his peak, he wouldn't be able to withstand this punch. Not bad. I have finally recovered some of my strength. Yi Qinghan muttered to himself. The relay station was filled with people from the insane sect and the death warriors. No one said anything. They all knew that Yi Qinghan had broken through. Southwest of the auction house, there was a huge divine herb garden. There were countless divine herbs and divine fruits everywhere. The deeper one went, the stronger the divine herbs were. Xue Jiuhuang was on the lookout outside. The divine bird had already rushed into the depths of the garden. It was only interested in the divine fruits. As it ate, it sent them into its yin and yang ring. It didn't know the names of most of the divine fruits, but it knew that they were very valuable. Some of the fruits were very rare and hadn't been seen for 10,000 years. Many of them were things that even emperors didn't have the right to enjoy. However, the divine bird didn't hesitate to grab them and eat them. The ground was littered with fruit pits. Above the herb garden, divine light flowed. The barrier's divine light shot into the sky. No one would have thought that such a powerful barrier couldn't stop a bird. In front of it, there were dozens of golden ginseng fruits growing on a towering tree. There was an independent barrier around the tree. The value of this divine tree was beyond imagination. The divine bird's saliva flowed out of its mouth, and its eyes shone brightly. It looked around, and when it saw that there were no powerful beings guarding the area, it quickly entered the enchantment. However, before long, the enchantment shone brightly, and the entire medicinal garden was covered in a space-time restriction. Nothing could move. Chapter 1340. The divine bird was stunned on the spot. Although it could move freely, it could feel that the space around it was very sticky, and its movements were obviously restricted. When Xian Yanxue saw the divine light shining, he immediately ran away, abandoning the divine bird. Tong Tong wanted to look, but he was enveloped by a pressure. When he saw Xian Yanxue running away, he immediately asked, "What's going on?" "Don't ask. We've provoked a big guy. Let's go." Xian Yanxue didn't even look back. He didn't care about the divine bird at all. This guy and the divine bird were a match made in heaven. "What about the divine bird?" Tong Tong asked curiously. "Fuck, it has nothing to do with us. Just say you don't know it. This is called dying friends rather than dying friends." Xian Yanxue immediately warned. Oh, Tong Tong seemed to have learned something again. He nodded seriously and slipped away with Xian Yanxue. The divine bird was so scared that it squatted on the tree, motionless. Its color had turned green, like a chameleon bird. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to see anything wrong with it. The key was that its aura was so restrained that it was comparable to Yi Qing Han. As long as it didn't move, no one would notice it. At this moment, an old man with sharp ears and monkey-like cheeks appeared in the herb garden. His eyes were like an eagle's, sharp and ruthless. At first glance, one could tell that he wasn't a good person. The old man glanced around and found that the divine fruits in the herb garden were almost empty. The ground was covered with fruit pits, and cold air was emitting from them. "Damn it, you dare to steal from my Bian family. The sky ceiling formation has been activated. Let's see where you can run to." The old man's voice was hoarse and extremely harsh, like the sound of steel rubbing against each other. The divine bird was motionless. Green leaves surrounded it, and it merged with the ginseng tree. Only its two big eyes were moving. "Fuck, why does this fruit have a kind of resentment?" the divine bird secretly exclaimed. It felt a wave of death chi coming from the depths of the ground. However, the ginseng fruit was full of vitality, just like a real person. It could even distinguish the gender. This kind of ginseng fruit was extremely popular in the market, and it was difficult to find even in 10,000 pounds. The divine bird curiously used its divine sense to explore downwards. When it entered the ground, it was so shocked that it almost fell down. Its divine sense actually sensed countless huge white bones, all of which belonged to humans. Furthermore, some of the corpses had not even decomposed yet. The roots of the tree were intertwined, and each of the roots was wrapped around a corpse. Furthermore, it was obvious from the bones that those corpses were all giant gods. Bang! At this moment, a fresh corpse was actually still moving. It was obvious that its cultivation had been restricted and it had been buried alive to provide life energy for the ginseng fruit. Fuck your mother. These ginseng fruits are formed by absorbing the life essence of humans. The owner of this house is so vicious. The divine bird was shocked. It was so scared that it almost lost control of itself. If it was discovered, it would definitely be buried alive. Perhaps it would grow a fruit similar to a divine bird. Soon, the terrifying old man appeared under the ginseng fruit. He found that the ginseng fruit was not lost, but he also did not find the creature that had intruded into the herb garden. He looked around and frowned. Impossible. The heaven ceiling absolute formation has already been activated. He definitely can't escape. Swish. 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 Some people rushed over from afar. They were all giant gods. With divine seals in their hands, they entered the barrier without any resistance and quickly joined up with the old man. Search. He definitely hasn't left the herb garden. After finding him, no matter who it is, don't let him leave. Kill him without mercy. The matter of the herb garden cannot be known by outsiders. The old man said coldly. Yes. Elder. More than 20 giant gods quickly separated and spread out from the ginseng tree to search. However, they did not look above the ginseng tree. The divine bird held its breath and secretly cursed Xie Niangsu for being disloyal. If he was willing to delay the old man, it could have escaped. In the relay station, Yi Qinghan was cultivating a secret technique and comprehending the method of the outer world. Xie Niangsu and Tong Tong hurriedly ran back. The knocking on the door woke Yi Qinghan up. Yi Qinghan opened the door and saw that the two were panicking. However, he did not see the divine bird. He frowned and asked, "Did the divine bird cause trouble again?" "It broke into a herb garden. I couldn't stop it no matter how hard I tried. I could only watch as it ran in. However, I don't know what it touched, but it actually activated the absolute formation. A large number of experts rushed in. I couldn't beat it, so I could only come back to report." Xie Niangsu said with a serious expression, brushing aside the matter completely. When Yi Qinghan heard this, he quickly left the room and went to the entrance of the relay station downstairs. He said to a guard, "Go and inform the Mu family to find out who owns the herb garden in the southwest." "Yes, Lord Shuai." The guard immediately left the relay station and rushed to the Mu family. After about half an incense stick's worth of time, a very steady middle-aged man came to the Mu family. He didn't look very good. The origin of the herb garden wasn't simple. "Lord Shuai, that's the Bian family's herb garden. The Bian family is connected to a very strange organization. As far as I know, it's an organization of assassins. However, it doesn't belong to hell or heaven. The Bian family exists for this organization. Moreover, the Bian family has a very good relationship with the First Financial Group and the Archaean sect. Normally, they're polite to the Mu family, but when it comes to the herb garden, they refuse to give face to anyone. My spirit pet accidentally broke into the Bian family's herb garden. Take me to see it. If there's any damage, I'm willing to compensate." Yi Qinghan said in a low voice. The Mu family's middle-aged man hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he led Yi Qinghan to the herb garden in the southwest. At this moment, there were 6 paramount gods gathered in the herb garden. 3 of them were peak experts, 4 were mid-level paramount gods, and over 100 giant gods. They surrounded the herb garden, and all the paramount gods were searching the garden. After searching for more than an hour, they still didn't find the divine bird. They couldn't help but go crazy. However, it was very clear that the person who broke into the herb garden was still here. The divine fruits outside have all been stolen, but the most important ginseng fruit is still here. He must have discovered the secret. We can't let him leave. Find him even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground. The old man who had been in the beginning shouted sternly. The giant gods and paramount gods' expressions were somewhat unsightly. They spread out to search, but forgot that there was a bird sitting on the ginseng fruit tree. At this time, Yi Qinghan and the Mu family's elder came alone, hoping to compensate the Bian family for their losses and try not to fight. However, they didn't know that there was a shocking secret hidden in the herb garden. Because of this secret, the Bian family couldn't reconcile with Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan looked at the soaring barrier and pressed his hand on it. He said in a low voice, "The holy city Zwafeng has come to pay a visit to the Bian family's friends." Inside the barrier, the Bian family's elder's face was hazy. He frowned and looked outside the barrier. Who didn't know that Zwafeng of the holy city was an assistant minister? My Bian family has nothing to do with him. Why is he here? The Bian family's elder was secretly puzzled and quickly rushed outside. Whoosh! The Bian family's elder quickly appeared outside the barrier. When he saw the Mu family's elder and Yi Qinghan, his hazy face suddenly turned into a smile. He cupped his fists and said, "So it's Zwafeng and Mu Chen. Why have you come to my Bian family's herb garden? We don't receive distinguished guests here. Why don't you come with me to the Bian family?" Chapter 1341. Mu Chen obviously knew the Bian family elder in front of him, and the Bian family elder knew him. Yi Qinghan looked down at the Bian family elder in front of him. The elder looked to be less than 1.75 meters tall and was emaciated. His eye sockets were protruding and his entire body was filled with hostility. It was impossible to imagine how a cultivator could look like this, without any semblance of a human. Elder Bianing, this is Marshal Zhua. His spirit pet accidentally broke into your family's medicine garden, so he specially brought me here to apologize to the Bian family. If there is any loss, Marshal Zhua is willing to compensate according to the price. Please release your spirit pet. Mu Qin quickly bowed and said. That's right, fellow Bian. If there are any losses, this marshal will definitely compensate according to the price. Although this spirit pet is not very useful, it has been with me since childhood. It is like a brother, and I am unwilling to part with it. It likes to cause trouble, but it has no bad intentions. Fellow Bian, please let it go. Yi Qinghan cupped his fist and said. Bian Ying's eyes turned cold, and the chill was threatening. He said hoarsely, so it is Marshal Zhua's spirit pet. No wonder it stole all the divine fruits in my family's forbidden area. More than half of the ginseng fruit has been eaten. I am afraid Marshal Zhua can't afford to compensate. This beast must die here today. If Marshal Zhua feels reluctant, my Bian family is willing to compensate with a higher-level spirit pet. When Yi Qinghan heard this, his domineering aura leaked out. He looked down at Bianing, and his hostility filled the surroundings. He said in a cold voice, take me in. If it is as you say, I am willing to pay double the compensation. But if you dare to hurt it, don't blame this marshal for being ruthless. And if I don't? Bianing released his aura and coldly retorted. The two sides opposed each other with equal harshness. One wanted to keep the secret, and the other wanted to protect his brother. They were both very strong, and neither side gave in. Yi Qinghan looked at Bianing, and the corner of his mouth hooked up into a cruel smile. He said hoarsely, no one has ever dared to refuse my proposal. I am now discussing with you. If you don't want face, I will completely tear it off. I want to see if your Bian family's face is more important than the inheritance. The ruthless Yi Qinghan was like an arrogant wild wolf, full of wildness and dominance. Every word and action of his carried a deadly threat. Bianing had an ugly expression on his face. Although his cultivation seemed to be a minor realm higher than Yi Qinghan, deep down, he did not dare to confront Yi Qinghan. You want to use your aristocratic status to bully ordinary people like me? Bianing asked angrily. Then I'll tell you according to the rules of Jianghu. It's right and proper to pay back what you owe. I'll pay you back what my spiritual pet has destroyed. What else do you want? Yi Qinghan took a strong step forward, his disdainful eyes threatening. Outside the enchantment, a baleful aura soared into the sky, sweeping up the fallen leaves and his black hair. The bracelet on Yi Qinghan's wrist emitted a crisp sound as it swept into the sky. Bianing sneered, in terms of the rules of Jianghu, what are you, Zhua Feng? Your spiritual pet unscrupulously destroyed my Bian family's property. You want to pay the original price for compensation? Where will my Bian family's face go? Mu Chen frowned as he looked at Bianing. He didn't expect this guy to be so strong. He would rather offend Zhua Shuai than let go of a parrot. He felt that this matter was a bit strange. Fellow Bian Daoist, just report your family's losses to the elders. If Mr. Zhua really can't afford it, my Mu family will make up for it. Mr. Zhua has already expressed his apology. The Bian family's face is enough. Do you want him to go to the auction house and apologize to your Bian family in front of the world? Mu Chen said with a frown. Bianing said disdainfully, the loss this time is immeasurable. The Bian family doesn't want compensation. We just want to tell the world that my Bian family is a forbidden area. Anyone who breaks in will die. Even Zhua Shuai's spiritual pet is no exception. Seeing Bianing so arrogant and unwilling to back down, Yi Qinghan couldn't help but laugh evilly. It seems that the Bian family's face is indeed very important. I don't know if your face can withstand my fist. Yi Qinghan clenched his iron fists. His momentum soared into the clouds, and the might of the firmament was restrained in front of his chest. He glared, and his fists broke the shackles. Everything on the 100-mile-tall mountain swayed, as if following his punch towards Bianing. Boom! Flames came out of the friction of the iron fist, burning everything in front of him. The power of the war of the heavens swept in all directions, causing sand and stones to fly. Mu Chen's eyes were filled with horror. He retreated again and again. His whole body felt like it was being pricked by needles. The power that erupted from Yi Qinghan's body was too brutal. Jianhu people spoke Jianhu words and did Jianhu things. If there was a disagreement, there would be a fight between fists. The moment Yi Qinghan made his move, Bian Ying's mouth revealed a cruel smile. His fingertips buckled and a heaven-devouring Qiankuan pot appeared in his hand. He pressed his palms on the pot and the Qiankuan pot suddenly expanded. Divine light shot out in all directions and the pot's mouth was aimed at Yi Qinghan. Swish! A majestic suction force directly tore Yi Qinghan's body into the pot. Yi Qinghan felt something was wrong when he approached the pot's mouth. A sinister killing intent came from the pot, as if it could devour and destroy everything. Topple the mountains and overturn the seas. Break the heavens. Yi Qinghan's fist turned into two palms and fiercely struck the pot's mouth. He hoped to use the counterforce to escape the pot's mouth. However, the pot's mouth formed a vortex that ignored this force and swallowed Yi Qinghan's force. The pot's mouth emitted a divine light that emitted profound laws. It was supreme. Yi Qinghan's body did not shrink, but the pot's mouth expanded infinitely and swallowed him in an instant. Bian Ying sneered and put away the Qiankuan pot. He said disdainfully, "How can the people of the imperial court discuss matters of the pugilistic world?" Mu Chen watched in shock as Bian Ying used the Qiankuan pot to take away Yi Qinghan. He could not help but cry out, "Bian Ying, you've caused a disaster. His Majesty and Marshal Zhua came personally, but you killed Marshal Zhua because of a herb garden. How can His Majesty spare you? I'm afraid your entire family will be implicated." Bian Ying's lips curled into a cruel smile. He said hoarsely, "Mu Chen, this matter is only known to the heavens and the earth. No one else knows. I'll treat it as if you've never been here." Swish! Just as the lightning flashed, Bian Ying took out the Qiankuan pot again and took Mu Chen away. Even Yi Qinghan could not avoid it, let alone Mu Chen. A majestic world force appeared in the Qiankuan pot. It could refine all living things and turn everything into a pool of water. It was extremely poisonous and mean. It could destroy everything. However, Mu Chen looked at Yi Qinghan, who was standing on the Yin poison pool, and didn't move at all. There was even a faint smile on his face, as if he didn't care about this place at all. However, Mu Chen cared. The power of the world quickly broke through his defenses, and with a scream, he fell down. The power of the world turned into thousands of rays of light that surrounded him, wanting to refine him. Inshur pot. Yi Qinghan looked at the pot structure and the strange operation of the world force. He recognized this ancient treasure. It could refine the world and swallow everything. As long as one was shot into the pot, no one could escape. Yi Qinghan reached out and grabbed Mu Chen's back. He lifted him up. An indifferent force protected him. The world force could not refine them. Swa Shui. What should we do? Mu Chen asked in horror. That's the Inshur kettle, an object of supreme Yin in all creation. It contains the power of the world, which can help it refine and consume anything. Of course, that's not absolute. It depends on the cultivation base of the person who controls the power of the world, and how much enlightenment they have of it. Clearly, Bian Ying doesn't understand the power of the world. The Incher kettle operates on its own, and doesn't explode with power that can kill ordinary paramount gods. But as far as I'm concerned, as long as I don't fall into the pool of water, it won't hurt me. Sir, save me. Mu Chen pleaded. He looked at the world force swirling around him and said in horror. Chapter 1342. The power of the world was naturally the origin of the 9 worlds. No one in the 9 worlds could go against the power of the world unless they had comprehended the 9 worlds thoroughly. Yi Qinghan dared to say that he had comprehended the power of the world the most, and no one dared to refute him. Not even the Lord of the 7 worlds could surpass him. Yi Qinghan held Mu Chen with one hand and caressed it with the other. The power of the world flowed along with him, and the divine light under his feet flowed as if it was flat ground. The power of the world in the Incher's pot was soon under his control. He then threw Mu Chen to the side expressionlessly. Mu Chen panicked, but he realized that the Incher's pot didn't refine him. Instead, it was unusually comfortable. He couldn't help but look at Yi Qinghan in shock. "My lord, what should we do?" Mu Chen asked in shock. Yi Qinghan looked up, and it was like a galaxy. He couldn't see the top of the pot at all. "Just wait for him to open the Incher's pot again." Yi Qinghan closed his eyes, and his divine sense rushed out in all directions to sense the opening of the Incher's pot. 1,000,000 miles, 10,000,000 miles, it was as if the space inside the Incher's pot was boundless, and it was like a world of its own. After a long time, Yi Qinghan's figure flashed, and he appeared in the depths of the galaxy far away. He used his hands to support the opening of the pot and realized that it was as steady as Mount Tai. Inside the pot was equivalent to being in this world. No matter if it was a human or a god, they couldn't break through the 9 worlds. Now, he could only wait for Bianing to open the Incher's pot. At that moment, he could rush out of the pot and kill Bianing. Yi Qinghan sat cross-legged below the pot and comprehended the power of the world. With the power of the world as a catalyst, it was exceptionally easy for him to convert the godly power into the Incher's pot. All the godheads and spiritual spaces in his body were connected, and they turned into boundless godly power that gathered in his dantian. He formed a seal with his palms and guided the power of the world into his body. The godly power of the various elements in his body turned into the power of the world. Even the great desolation godly power was assimilated into the power of the world. Whoosh! All of the world powers had been sucked away. Yi Qinghan was like a bottomless pit. The entire Yin family's pot contained an unknown amount of world powers. It was likely that the Yin family's pot was a legendary pseudo-world item. It was also a top-class item. Otherwise, Yi Qinghan would not have known its name. Yi Qinghan's divine senses expanded, and he started to refine the entire Incher's pot. He wanted to defy the heavens and seize control of the Incher's pot. If he succeeded, Bianing would probably die from anger. Back then, no one had ever been able to control it, and it was impossible to tell what level it was. That was why Yang Qi had spent so many precious treasures to acquire it. Not even he, a peak paramount god, had been able to control it, so it was only natural that he viewed it as a paragon god treasure. After acquiring it, he had killed countless experts, including many peak paramount gods. Bian Ying's status in the god world of the Snow Empire was quite high because of the Yin family's pot. At this moment, Bianing had used the Incher's pot to devour Yi Qinghan and Mu Chen. His lips curled into a cold smile as he turned around and stepped into the herb garden. He coldly scanned his surroundings and sinisterly said, "Lowly bird, get out here. Your master is here to pick you up." The divine bird spied on Bianing, but couldn't sense Yi Qinghan's location. Therefore, it was certain that he hadn't entered the barrier. Clearly, it didn't trust Bianing. It stood motionless among the leaves. Bianing was infuriated. He stared at the ginseng fruit tree, searching it inch by inch. Occasionally, his gaze would sweep past the divine bird, but he couldn't find it. The divine bird had long since been listed as a key target by the major organizations. This bastard had even dared to steal from the god sect, and had left unscathed. How could they not pay attention to it? The divine bird was a parrot with white feathers, extremely intelligent, and could ignore all barriers. Bianing clearly didn't know that the divine bird had the ability to change color. Perhaps even Yi Qinghan himself didn't know. Perhaps it had grown to such a stage that it could seek advantages and avoid disadvantages, and evolve on its own. After searching many times, he still couldn't find any trace of the divine bird. Bianing paced back and forth under the ginseng fruit tree. Finally, he looked at the Yin family's pot in his hand and sneered. It's been 6 hours. Presumably, Zhou Feng and Mu Chen have been refined. Since that's the case, I'll use the Yin family's pot again to take you out of here. Bianing snorted coldly. He rose from the sky and looked down from above. He pulled open the pot's mouth and pointed it downwards. He shouted in a low voice, "Supreme God Pot, devour all things." But after a long time, the Yin family's pot didn't produce any suction force. There wasn't even any movement. The reason why the Yin family's pot was so strong was because it contained a huge amount of world energy. It formed a huge profound law that could devour everything. But now, the world energy had been absorbed by Yi Qinghan. It was like a useless divine weapon. Bianing frowned. He stretched his head out to look at the pot's mouth. He wanted to see what was going on inside. But Yi Qinghan, who was inside the pot, threw a punch at Bianing's eyes. Pang! Boom! Ah! Bianing screamed. His body leaned back and the Yin family's pot fell out of his hand. Xiao! Yi Qinghan turned into a wisp of smoke and appeared outside the pot. He then reverted back to his golden body. With a grab, the Yin clan pot appeared in his hand. He then used his powerful sector Lord Divine Sense to erase Bianying's soul from the pot. Boom! Bianying's soul seemed to have been struck by a supreme existence. He became muddle-headed and spat out a mouthful of essence blood. He fell to the ground in panic. No! Bianing hugged his head and screamed. His body twisted and curled up. He was in a sorry state. Yi Qinghan then poured the majestic world energy in his body into the Yin family's pot. He also mobilized the purest world energy in the 9 worlds heaven. The Yin family's pot, which was about the size of 2 palms, became extremely majestic. Golden light shot out in all directions. In just a moment, the Yin family's pot was filled with world energy. Mu Chen was also released. His handsome face revealed a smile. He didn't expect to obtain the peerless divine weapon Yin family's pot here. At this moment, the divine bird rushed down from the ginseng fruit tree and cursed, "The Bian family is inhuman. There are corpses everywhere under the ginseng fruit tree. Each ginseng fruit is formed by absorbing the life of a giant god. For the ginseng fruit to grow to this stage, I don't know how many giant gods the Bian family killed." Yi Qinghan's eyebrows twitched. He spread his divine sense downwards and found a large number of human bones. He saw that the roots of the ginseng fruit tree were still stuck in a few bodies that were not completely dead. They were crazily absorbing the life essence and souls of the giant gods. He couldn't help but clench his iron fist. No wonder you would rather offend this seat and kill my spiritual pet. It turns out that you were hiding this secret. Yi Qinghan looked coldly at Bianing, who had fallen to the ground, and said coldly. Mu Chen also spread his divine sense downwards. He saw the dense piles of bones. It was like hell. He couldn't help but say angrily, "You are so vicious. We actually became your accomplices and helped you auction the ginseng fruit. This is simply a heinous crime." Bianing was terrified. Once this matter was exposed, the Bian family would become the target of public criticism. At this moment, he could only look angrily at Yi Qinghan and the divine bird. Looking at its green feathers, he almost went berserk. But before he could do anything, he was kicked to the ground by Yi Qinghan. Chapter 1343. The Zhang family just updated the wrong version. Please remove the Quang Wuzhan bookshelf first, and then you can see the correct version. Bianing was kicked into the ground by Yi Qinghan, and he almost couldn't breathe. Yi Qinghan looked down at Bianing condescendingly. The corners of his mouth curled up in disdain and arrogance, full of provocation. He leaned over and said in a hoarse voice, "Jianhu people speak Jianhu words and do Jianhu things. Since you've lost, I'll kill you. As for the inhumane matter of the ginseng fruit tree, the Bian family will bear it. If you don't give me face, don't blame me for not giving you face." Bian Ying's face was ferocious. He looked at Yi Qinghan angrily and roared, "I will bear the consequences of my own actions. This is my herb garden, and it has nothing to do with the Bian family. If you have any problems, come at me. If I frown, I'm your grandson." Yi Qinghan laughed evilly and said disdainfully, "I don't have such an ugly grandson like you. Don't try to make connections. What do you want?" Bianing asked angrily. "I don't want anything. I just want to seek justice for the people who died under this tree. Otherwise, how can I be an assistant minister of God Kingdom?" Yi Qinghan said lightly. Bianing wanted to move the foot on his chest, but he couldn't move an inch. After struggling for a long time, he didn't even have the strength to breathe. He could only give up and beg for mercy. "Marshal, you just want money. As long as you are willing to let the Bian family go, I am willing to pay any price." Yi Qinghan fiercely twisted his foot and said in revenge, "I can't afford your herb garden. Obviously, you can't afford the price I want. The Bian family must be destroyed, and I will let you watch them die one by one. This is the price you have to pay for rejecting my proposal." At this time, the group of experts from the Bian family rushed in from the outside and shouted at Yi Qinghan, "Who is so arrogant? How dare you blaspheme the dignity of Elder Bian? Do you want to die? Let go of Elder Bian. Be careful that the Bian family doesn't slaughter your whole family." The experts from the Bian family roared. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan waved his hand, and the Yinshi's pot hovered in the air. With a flash of divine radiance, the Yinshi's pot captured all the experts. Mu Chen didn't dare to say a word, nor did he want to plead for mercy for the Bian family. This time, he had almost died at the hands of Bianing, so he only had resentment towards the Bian family. However, he only had respect for Yi Qinghan. He had never seen anyone who could escape after being sucked into the Yinshi's pot. "Come with me." Yi Qinghan glanced at Mu Chen coldly. Then, he lifted Bianing up and clasped his neck, sealing his spiritual space. Bianing now regretted it. He didn't expect Yi Qinghan's revenge to come so quickly, and in an even more violent way. "No. Suofeng, you can't do this. This matter has nothing to do with my Bian family." Bianing roared hoarsely. Yi Qinghan ignored him. He took him to the boundary and shot a distress arrow into the sky. The arrow exploded in the void, and the people of the arrogant sect immediately rushed out of the auction house. Xue Jiuhuang frowned and looked into the distance. He put on his black cloak and disappeared in a flash. He tore through the void and left the courier station. He was faster than the people of the arrogant sect. He rushed out of the herb garden first and saw Yi Qinghan carrying the Bian family elder. Mu Chen stood aside and transmitted his voice to Yi Qinghan, "It's me, Xue Jiuhuang. What's going on? Why did you shoot a distress arrow?" Yi Qinghan saw Xue Jiuhuang and immediately explained, "The ginseng fruits sold here are piled up with human lives. One ginseng fruit represents more than 10 human lives. They sealed the giant gods and even the supreme gods and buried them alive under the roots to provide nourishment for the ginseng fruit tree. Even their souls were taken away and became part of the ginseng fruit. This vicious plan is simply against humanity. Today, I will enforce justice on behalf of heaven. What? How dare the Bian family? Xue Jiuhuang was furious. He smashed the ground with his palm. After entering the boundary, he saw that Yi Qinghan's murderous intent towards the Bian family was growing stronger. Whoosh! The people of the arrogant sect rushed out of the boundary. They could not help but laugh when they saw the divine bird's green body. The little miser roared, "Are you cursing me to make you a cuckold? Are you saying I'm fickle?" The divine bird was a little innocent. It did not know why the little miser was so angry. It said aggrievedly, "I didn't say that. How dare you quibble? You don't love me at all." The little miser roared. The divine bird was a little angry. It was already a little frightened and did not want to coax the little miser. It immediately said impatiently, "How am I quibbling? Everyone is watching. When did I say you're fickle? When did I curse you to make me a cuckold? I'm doing this to protect myself. How dare you yell at me?" The little miser exaggeratedly stuck out her big belly and asked angrily. The divine bird was completely stunned. It stared at the little miser in disbelief. It felt like it was looking at an idiot. It did not want to pay attention to it at all. It turned its head and did not speak anymore. "Great! You ungrateful bitch! You're ignoring me. You really don't love me anymore. Pity my orphan and widow. My child is not even born yet and it's already turning its back on me. Look at your green body. It's so disgusting." The little miser roared in confusion. Yi Qinghan, the divine bird, looked at the little miser. Its eyes were lifeless. It felt like there was nothing left to live for. Xue Jiuhuang, the people of the arrogant sect, were completely petrified. They did not expect the little miser to be like this after she got pregnant. "What do you want?" the divine bird asked weakly. Yi Qinghan did not want to listen to their lovey-dovey quarrel anymore. He reached out and threw the divine bird over his shoulder. He said to the crowd, "Watch this place. No one is allowed to come near." After saying that, Yi Qinghan looked at Xue Jiuhuang and whispered, "Ninth Emperor, let's go and suppress the Bian family. However, it's better if you don't expose your identity." Xue Jiuhuang nodded. Together with Yi Qinghan, they rushed toward the Bian family with Bian Ying. The Bian family had just received news that the herb garden had been lost. They could not help but panic. They quickly contacted the Yentian Pavilion, the Wang family, and the Celestial sect, hoping that the three major forces could change Marshall's mind. The head of the Bian family was a dignified old man. He looked like a celestial being. His white hair fluttered in the wind, and his celestial aura lingered around him. He made people trust him. However, he was actually a treacherous and shameless person. Otherwise, he would not have killed so many people just to cultivate the ginseng fruit. Marshall's reach is really long. Half of this auction house is my Bian family's territory. He didn't even ask who the Bian family's backer is. How dare he attack us? The benefits of the ginseng fruit are not exclusive to our family. The head of the Bian family said softly. I'm afraid that the Bian family's backer is not powerful enough. You can't make me back down. Yi Qinghan and Xue Jiuhuang tore through the void and arrived. They stood outside the Bian family's gate and stared at the crowd. Their eyes were filled with murderous intent. Boom! Yi Qinghan threw Bian Ying to the ground and stepped on him. He said calmly, "Then please ask the Bian family's backer to come out. I want to see how powerful your backer is to dare to do such a crazy thing." Chapter 1344. The patriarch of the Bian family, Bian Changlong, looked down at Yi Qinghan. His majestic aura radiated in all directions, with a cold glint that could not be defied. "Generals, we are all people standing at the top of the pyramid. Why do you have to be so ruthless?" Bian Changlong asked in a low voice. Yi Qinghan shrugged and kicked Bian Ying under his feet. He said lightly, I didn't want to be so ruthless, but this elder of the Bian family did not seem to give me any face and forced me into a corner. Moreover, as the patriarch of the Bian family, you don't seem to care about me either. Since that's the case, show me your trump card. I want to see who is backing the Bian family and whether they can make me retreat. The atmosphere outside the Bian family was extremely oppressive. Bian Changlong signaled everyone in the family with his eyes, and they quickly spread out and surrounded Yi Qinghan and Xue Jiuhuang. Divine power fluctuated abnormally, and murderous intent rose everywhere. General Xue, let's both take a step back. I will pretend that nothing happened today. I hope General Xue will pretend that you did not see anything. How about that? Bian Changlong asked firmly. Sorry, I can't pretend that I didn't see anything, Yi Qinghan said calmly. Bian Changlong's face was cold. He snorted and said, then what do you want? To deal with Bian Ying, I will naturally follow the rules of the Jianghu. However, to deal with the Bian family, I will naturally follow the imperial court's laws. Otherwise, why do you think I have not attacked the Bian family until now? I am waiting for the Minister of Justice of the auction house and the army of the residents of the 9 emperors to deal with you. I have to follow the rules to prevent people from saying that I am a bully, Yi Qinghan said lightly. Bian Changlong stared at Yi Qinghan. No one knew what he was thinking. After a long time, he said coldly, a strong dragon cannot suppress a snake in its old haunts. Don't force me to fight to the death. Yi Qinghan looked at Xue Jiuhuang and asked telepathically, do you need to wait for the army of your residents? Or do you want to attack directly and wipe out the Bian family? Wait, the Bian family is not an ordinary family. They have a strong foundation and have developed a huge network of relationships with ginseng fruits. If you want to destroy them, you must do it under the witness of the judiciary. Otherwise, you won't be able to convince the world. I don't want the world to say that the royal family and Marshal Xue are arbitrary. Xue Jiuhuang shook his head slightly, stopping Yi Qinghan's plan of attacking by force. Furthermore, with just the two of them, it would be difficult for them to fight against the massive Bian clan, not to mention that the Bian clan had so many external reinforcements. Yi Qinghan extended his divine sense outwards. The Bian family occupied an area of 1,000 miles. Countless tribes had gathered to form the enormous Bian family. There were many experts hidden within the tribes, and they were all suppressing their hostility. However, they were all restless and ready to charge out at any moment. When Bian Changlong saw that Yi Qinghan wasn't making a move, he guessed that Yi Qinghan was stalling for time so that the judicial department could intervene. Bian Changlong whispered a few words into the ear of an old man beside him. Then, the old man quickly left the place and retreated into the depths of the Bian family. About half an hour later, the Bian clan's territory was in turmoil. At least thousands of experts had been mobilized. They were all holding powerful divine weapons and carrying divine bows and crossbows. They quickly rushed towards the herb garden from another direction. Yi Qinghan and Xue Jiuhuang both noticed their movements, but they didn't stop them. Although the Bian clan had many people, their combat power was definitely not comparable to the insane sects. Even if this group of direct descendants of the Bian clan went to the herb garden, they would only be sending themselves to their deaths. It was impossible for them to destroy the evidence under the ginseng fruit tree. Yi Qinghan looked at Bian Changlong with an evil smile and waited with his arms crossed. Time flew by. Both sides were in a stalemate, but both were holding back. They didn't want to be the first to make a move. A third force quickly appeared. It wasn't the divine sect, nor was it the people of the Yantian pavilion. It was an elder of the Wang clan. Moreover, it was Wang Yuqing's grandfather, Wang Long. He was acquainted with Yi Qinghan. During the wedding last time, he gave him a large piece of perfect snow-step spiritual stone. It was priceless and could only be found by chance. Ha ha ha, isn't this my grandson-in-law? It's really a case of a family not recognizing each other. Wang Long laughed. Yi Qinghan smiled and bowed. So it's sixth grandpa. May I know what brings you here? Aya, my good grandson. The Bien clan and I are close friends. Can you give me face and let's both take a step back? If you suffer any losses, I'm sure old man Bien, as your elder, will not let you suffer. Wang Long tried his best to persuade and signaled to Bien Changlong with his eyes. After receiving the signal, Bien Changlong immediately changed his attitude. Sui Shui, so you're old man Wang's grandson-in-law. We're really a family. My Bien clan's granddaughter is preparing to marry old man Wang's grandson, Wang Zhong. Today's matter is purely a misunderstanding. I've been rude. Since we're a family, why don't we discuss this in the inner palace? As long as we can appease Sui Shui, I'm willing to personally pour tea to apologize. Shui Jiuhuang snorted. His cold gaze pierced through his cloak as he stared at Wang Long and Bien Changlong. He didn't expect these two old things to be able to gloss over such a crazy matter as the ginseng fruit tree so easily. Yi Qinghan naturally wouldn't let the Bien clan go. Not to mention Wang Long, even if Wang Zhongjuan came personally, it wouldn't change his mind to wipe out the Bien clan. I'm very sorry, but this matter involves the dignity of the divine nation. The royal family is the witness. How can we settle this matter hastily and in secret? Yi Qinghan asked indifferently. Bien Changlong's expression turned ugly. He didn't expect Yi Qinghan to be so stubborn. Wang Long was even angrier. He blew his beard and glared. He said discontentedly, my grandson, are you not even willing to give me face? Yi Qinghan pretended to be in a difficult position. He smiled bitterly and said, it's not that I don't want to give you face. It's just that this matter has a huge impact. His Majesty already knows about it. I want to help you, but I'm powerless. Wang Long and Bien Changlong looked coldly at Yi Qinghan. They knew that he was declining and wanted to punish the Bien clan, but they couldn't persuade him. At this moment, a figure appeared in front of everyone. He was wearing the robes of a divine sect elder. He had met Yi Qinghan before. Back then, when Yi Qinghan went to the divine sect to save the divine bird, he was stopped by him. The elder looked disdainfully at Yi Qinghan and mocked, the great left marshal. Who doesn't know that the puppet emperor doesn't know anything? You make all the decisions in the world. The sacred city is also ruled by your words. Now that you say you can't back down, it only means that you don't care about the Wang clan at all. Yi Qinghan's expression immediately changed. He coldly rebuked, elder of the divine sect, how dare you not care about His Majesty? You even maliciously slandered His Majesty and instigated the relationship between the marshal and the Wang clan. How preposterous! Do you still care about the divine nation? Shui Jiuhuang stared deeply at Yi Qinghan. He was somewhat suspicious of the divine sect elder's words. What bullshit emperor? Do you respect him? The dignity of the divine nation is nothing but a joke in the eyes of super forces like you and us. Sui Feng, I came here on behalf of the Divine Master to tell you to be a good person and do your job well. Together, we can control this world. Otherwise, you will die without a burial ground. The elder warned coldly. Chapter 1345. The Shenzong sect did not mince their words. They believed that the theocrats were either too old or too young. If it were not for Yi Qinghan, the Shenzong sect would be a pile of rotten wood. When Shui Jiuhuang heard that, he was furious. He did not expect the superpowers to judge the theocrats like that. And they were so blunt. How much did the Shenzong sect look down on the theocrats? Yi Qinghan glanced at Shui Jiuhuang casually, as if to verify that the Shenzong sect really did not care about the theocrats. They really dared to kill Marshal Shui and draw blood in the sacred city. Shui Jiuhuang took a deep breath and made up his mind. He would slaughter the Snow God sect and uproot all the superpowers. The theocrats would be the only superpower. Even if both sides suffered losses in the end, he would not hesitate. Now, there was only one crime left. As long as the Snow God sect dared to kill the emperor, the crime would be established. Xue Zhehuang was not someone to be trifled with. Although he was angry, he did not explode. Instead, he stood quietly behind Yi Qinghan, quietly waiting for the 9 emperors' residence's private army and the state's judicial department to intervene. Boom! In the direction of the herb garden, divine light shot out in all directions. Clearly, the Bian family and the eccentric sect had started fighting. Bian Changlong was waiting anxiously, but Yi Qinghan was much more relaxed. He did not show any emotion. Things had to be done one by one. When the Bian family's experts in the herb garden were all killed, Bian Changlong would naturally panic. He would find a reason and excuse to wipe out the Bian family. Divine light shot out from the horizon. Murderous intent filled the sky. The eccentric sex experts killed their way into the crowd. When their swords struck, heads fell to the ground. Divine power filled their bodies and killed their life force. No one could resist them. Jiang Jingtian and the others were merciless. They blocked the outside so no one could get close to the herb garden. Naturally, they could not destroy the ginseng fruit tree. Shirgu leaned against the ginseng fruit tree, holding the stone brick in his hand. His lips curled into an evil smile. He did not attack. The big bomb was always used at the last moment. Dealing with these small fries was like using a cannon to kill mosquitoes. It was too wasteful. However, given Shi Ji's temperament, he was unable to hold himself back. He put away the pseudo-world treasure stone brick and took out his own big brick. Its power had been reduced by more than 10,000 times, but it was still full of fighting spirit. He rushed into the crowd and smashed people's heads. The big brick was a weapon that could hurt enemies from all angles. Boundless heaven and earth, invincible brick. Suppress him. Shirgu formed a seal with both of his hands, and the brick in his hand turned into a colossal object that blotted out the sky. It was as if the sky was collapsing, and the giant god's legs were trembling from the pressure. They unleashed their divine power in an attempt to block the suppression of the brick. Boom! Boom! The earth ruptured, and many experts were directly pressed into the ground. Their bodies ruptured, and their divine bones were broken. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Jiang Jingtian, Xian Yanxue, Li Feng, and the others rushed into the crowd with their divine weapons. Their spears pierced through dozens of people's bodies, and their swords destroyed hundreds of miles of land. Tong Tong broke the spines of many people, and he was so excited that he ignored the attacks of others. He killed several paramount gods in a row, and his teeth broke the necks of several people. His attacking style was strange, and it made the people of the insane sect feel terrified. Less than an hour later, there were no more divine power fluctuations in the herb garden. Bian Changlong stretched his neck to wait for the signal, but he did not receive any good news. Instead, he saw Yi Qinghan smiling evilly. Whoosh! A signal appeared in the sky above the herb garden. It was the internal signal of the insane sect, indicating that everything had been settled. Yi Qinghan did not show much emotion. The outcome of this matter was obvious. With Shirgu holding the pseudo-world treasure stone brick, even if Mu Yunfeng were to come in person, he would not be able to do any real damage to the Guangzong. After another hour, the state government chief brought an army and surrounded the Bian family. There were at least 100,000 soldiers, and they were all out. Boom! 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 The army was uniform, and they formed a crescent shape. The opening realm crossbows were loaded and aimed at the crowd. However, Bian Changlong did not panic. Instead, he smiled and waved his hand, indicating for his people to retreat. Yi Qinghan frowned. The state government chief was an overlord, and he was not a direct subordinate of the imperial family. However, he usually listened to the imperial family's orders, and he would also follow the orders of the Snow Border Army's commander. They would not dare to betray him openly. Xue Zhehuang also felt that something was wrong. He slowly turned around and saw the state government chief, Xia Luochun, smiling evilly. Clap! Clap! At that moment, a young man walked out from the depths of the army. He clapped his hands and grinned evilly. The fourth prince. Mr. Zhua, I treated you well, but you did not know what was good for you. You forced me to kill you. Do you regret it today? The fourth prince looked down at Yi Qinghan and asked coldly. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. He did not expect the fourth prince to be waiting for him here. Yi Qinghan was surprised. It was the first time he had been schemed against like this, and it was a young prince. Commander Zhua, do you think my background is powerful? Can you do anything? Bian Changlong sneered. Wan Long was somewhat anxious. He naturally did not want the Commander Zhua to fall, and the Wang family could also make the Commander Zhua fall. However, he could not change the outcome because the Bian family would not let Yi Qinghan leave, and the fourth prince would not let him leave either. Yi Qinghan looked at the army surrounding them, and the only exit was blocked by the Bian family. He suddenly felt like laughing. Xue Zhehuang was almost angered to death. He did not expect the imperial family to fall to such a state, and the internal strife had not stopped. Are you trying to rebel in front of everyone? Do you still have the imperial family in your eyes? Xue Zhehuang reprimanded the Bian family, the fourth prince and Xia Luochun. Xue Zhehuang was furious. His cloak fluttered in the wind, and the surrounding aura was under his control, making him look like a supreme emperor. Only now did Bian Changlong and the others notice Xue Zhehuang. They were somewhat puzzled. Yi Qinghan stood with his arms crossed, a smile on his face. Even though he was surrounded, it did not affect his mood at all. The fourth prince frowned and looked at Xue Zhehuang. He asked coldly, "Who are you?" "Little Four, you really disappoint me. How dare you team up with an outsider to deal with an important official? Do you still have the imperial family's interests in your eyes?" Xue Zhehuang did not reveal his identity. He only reprimanded coldly. When the fourth prince heard this, his hair stood on end. Only the elders of the imperial family could call him Little Four. There were not many people who could have such an aura. Other than the Taishan clan elder, there was only one person in the previous generation who had such an aura, and that was Xue Zhehuang. You are ninth uncle. The fourth prince's eyes were filled with surprise and joy. Xue Zhehuang secretly took away the human skin mask on his face and pulled off his cloak. His aura was so strong that Xia Luochun and Bian Changlong's faces turned pale. Hua! Xia Luochun was shocked. He quickly knelt on one knee and said in surprise, "I didn't know the ninth emperor was here. Please forgive me." The fourth prince hid his surprise and knelt in front of Xue Zhehuang. He looked wronged and angry. He growled, "Ninth uncle, I beg you to come out and eliminate the traitors around the imperial family." Chapter 1346. The fourth prince did not confess and attacked Yi Qinghan directly. He wanted Xue Zhehuang to deal with Yi Qinghan. Xue Zhehuang frowned at the fourth prince and said coldly, "You still have the face to talk about eliminating the villains around the imperial family. Are you referring to Marshal Zhua?" "Yes. Ninth uncle, you can't judge a book by its cover. Zhua Feng is a treacherous villain. He made the princes fight among themselves for his own benefit. He messed up the imperial city and made me, sixth brother, seventh brother, and ninth brother all suffer. In the end, he made ninth brother a puppet and he became the retired emperor. Then, he used the divine sect and the Wang family to fight each other and weakened the authority of the divine nation. The authority of the imperial family was like a puddle of mud in front of him that he could trample on. Even now, I still haven't found out what his true goal is, but his heart is vicious and his plans are sinister. He definitely doesn't have good intentions. Right now, no one in the divine nation can deal with him. The fourth prince said in a low voice. Yi Qinghan frowned and looked at Xue Jiuhuang. He was suspicious. They looked at each other, but he did not see Xue Jiuhuang as a threat. Xue Jiuhuang's crime of harboring the survivors of the wilderness was enough to make him unable to rise again. At this time, the elder of the divine sect was not qualified to speak. He looked at Xue Jiuhuang awkwardly with a pale face. He knew he had said something wrong. Xue Jiuhuang looked at him strangely. Wang Long did not know what to say and kept silent. Xue Jiuhuang's authority was there. As long as he was willing to come out, no matter if it was the divine sect, the Wang family, or the auction house, no superpower would dare to be presumptuous. His authority was even stronger than the former emperor's. No one dared to disobey him. Bian Changlong, what do you have to say about the ginseng fruit tree? Xue Jiuhuang did not directly deal with Yi Qinghan or the divine sect. He decided to clean them up one by one and take back the authority of the divine nation. Bian Changlong was terrified. Once this matter spread out, the Bian family would be finished. Most of the missing giant gods and supreme gods had died under the ginseng fruit tree. The Bian family had offended many families and forces. Ninth Emperor, this. Bian Changlong didn't know what to do. He didn't even know how to explain himself. In other words, this matter was indeed done by the Bian family. Let me ask you, who else is cooperating with the Bian family to cultivate this ginseng fruit tree? Snow Ninth Emperor asked angrily. At this moment, the expressions of Wang Long, the elders, and Xia Luochun changed drastically. Obviously, they were related to this matter as well. He was afraid that Bian Changlong would expose this matter. Bian Changlong was drenched in cold sweat. He peeked at Xia Luochun and the others from the corner of his eyes and found that they were all warning him. They didn't dare to expose him, or else the royal family wouldn't dare to offend so many factions at the same time. If they couldn't deal with so many people at once, they would definitely take revenge on the Bian family. Ninth Emperor, Bian and I did this together. The Bian family doesn't know about it, and neither does anyone else. His Majesty can punish me alone. If you want to kill me or torture me, do as you please. I won't say a word. Bian Changlong said in a muffled voice. Yi Qinghan squinted his eyes and looked at the crowd. He wasn't interested in the Bian family. He only wanted to destroy the divine sect. Therefore, he didn't say anything and let Xue Ninth Emperor deal with it. Xue Ninth Emperor naturally understood that it was impossible to take down the Wang family and the divine sect in one go. Therefore, he didn't want to continue the investigation. He said, since you admit that it was done by the two of you, I don't want to continue the investigation. You can die now. The Bian family won't be implicated. Bian Changlong's forehead was covered in sweat. He slowly knelt on the ground. He didn't want to die, but he didn't dare to disobey Xue Ninth Emperor's orders. Ninth Emperor, the Bian family's leader is a peak supreme god expert. Why don't you give him a chance to make up for his mistakes? It's a pity to die like this. Xia Luochun immediately went up and pleaded. Wang Long also went up and said, Ninth Emperor, the Bian family is very important to the divine nation's economy. It's a pity to kill the Bian family's leader because of this matter. Please be merciful and give him another chance. The elder from the divine sect didn't dare to say anything. He was afraid that he would be implicated. However, Xue Ninth Emperor coldly looked at them. He revealed a cold smile and said with a hoarse voice, You think you're not guilty? Xia Luochun, you openly disobeyed the orders of the Snow Realm Army's commander. You even besieged the Snow Realm Army's commander. This crime is punishable by death. You're really daring. You still have the mood to plead for someone else. Xiao Luochuan's heart jumped and he knelt on the ground in fear. Left Commander, Ninth Emperor, this general knows his wrongs. Please be merciful. Xiao Luochun begged for mercy. He didn't dare to raise his head. Yi Qinghan's lips curled into a sneer. Today, he was almost tricked by a little palace chief. This person definitely couldn't be left alive. Whether this commander is guilty or not, it's up to His Majesty to decide. Today, I'm still the commander of the Snow Realm Army. Therefore, I have the right to punish you. Yi Qinghan immediately stepped forward and said to the lieutenant, "Men, take Xiao Luochun down and execute him on the spot. If he dares to resist, kill him. Ninth Emperor, save me. All these years, even if I didn't make any meritorious service, I still worked hard." Xiao Luochun shouted loudly. Xue Jiuhuang didn't say anything. He allowed Yi Qinghan to punish him. The crime of betraying the commander is equal to rebellion. No one has the right to plead for mercy. When Xiao Luochun saw that Xue Jiuhuang also wanted to kill him, his expression changed greatly. He immediately soared into the sky and fled far away. Boom! Yi Qinghan jumped up and punched out. His fist shattered the blue dome of heaven. His bracelet trembled and turned into a sound of nature that spread in all direction. Hua hua hua. In a split second, the heavens collapsed and the earth split. Even space and time were shattered. Yi Qinghan turned into a living dragon. His speed was several times faster than Xiao Luochuan's. He punched him out of the different space. Bang! Puff! Ah! Xiao Luochun screamed miserably. His body fell from the sky. Yi Qinghan descended from the sky. His bracelet turned into a long blade. His domineering aura soared to the sky as he slashed at Xiao Luochun. Puchi! Xiao Luochuan's body twisted. He wanted to dodge but his long legs couldn't. He was chopped down by the blade. The world energy brought with it boundless and magnificent destruction. It directly crushed his legs into fine powder. Blood splattered across the sky. The world energy brought about irreversible injuries. Xiao Luochun was unable to heal his injured body. The lower half of his body was destroyed. He fell heavily on the ground. Boom! Yi Qinghan stepped on Xiao Luochun. He revealed a mocking smile and said hoarsely, "Xiao Luochun betrayed the country and the world. I, as the commander of the Snow Realm Army, declare that he will be executed immediately. His entire family will be executed. You vicious thief! You will die a horrible death." Xiao Luochun roared. However, before he could finish, he saw a long blade slashing across his throat. His head was shattered into fine powder. Bian Chanlong's eyes turned red as he stared at Yi Qinghan. He knew that he wouldn't be able to turn the tables today. He didn't blame the Snow Nine Emperor, he only blamed Yi Qinghan. If it wasn't for him and his spirit pet, the ginseng fruit tree wouldn't have been exposed. This old man accepts the punishment. Thank you, Ninth Emperor, for granting me death. Bian Chanlong clenched his teeth and prepared to commit suicide. However, the pressure of heaven and earth suddenly became heavy. The space became extremely viscous. It was very difficult to even move. It was obvious that someone had taken control of this place. The land within 1,000 li of the Bian family had become someone else's territory. Chapter 1347. Time and space were viscous, making it difficult to move. Life and death were uncontrollable. Above the void, a figure gradually solidified. The pressure was getting stronger and stronger. It was as if a god had descended to the mortal world. A ray of light looked down on the earth, and his will covered thousands of miles. Domain. The area around the Bian family had become this person's domain. Everything had to follow his will. Yi Qinghan suddenly raised his head, and his hair stood on end. His bracelet turned crazy as he looked at the newcomer with vigilance. It was the master of divine sect. He didn't expect him to have comprehended the profound laws of the world. He could instantly control time and space and turn it into his own domain. Extreme perfection expert. The divine master had broken through a shackle and become a person second only to the realm master. He was on the same level as Huang Peng and other top experts of the older generation. He was even stronger than Xue Jiuhuang. Yi Qinghan squinted at the descending divine master. His face was filled with killing intent and a cold smile. He couldn't help but take a step back. He held the Yinshi's pot in his hand, but he didn't say anything. Xue Jiuhuang gasped. No wonder the elder of divine sect dared to say such words. The divine master's cultivation had grown to such a level. Bian Changlong was excited, and his will to live suddenly erupted. If Xiao Luochun knew the divine master would appear at this time, he wouldn't have chosen to escape and die a miserable death. Brother Jiuhuang, I want to kill Zhuofeng. How about we sit down and talk about the grudge between divine sect and the royal family? The divine master looked down from above and spoke with an inviolable will, not allowing Xue Jiuhuang to refute. Who was Xue Jiuhuang? Other than the great ancestor of the royal family and the supreme realm master, no one could order him around. Sect Master Xue, you're too arrogant. You dare to trample on the royal family's face in front of me. Do you really think you're invincible after breaking through? Xue Jiuhuang wasn't protecting Yi Qinghan. He was protecting the royal family's dignity. His powerful explosive power crazily rose as he fought against the divine master. He actually wanted to tear apart the domain and control half of the sky. Boom boom boom. The sky connected to the earth, and the earth connected to the sky. It was dark. The tornado uprooted the houses and ancient trees. Even steel was twisted into a ball. The Bian family's defensive array automatically activated to defend against the aftermath. Otherwise, the Bian family's living beings here would have been annihilated. Wan Long and Bian Changlong took advantage of the chaos to leave, leaving only Bian Ying under Yi Qinghan's foot. Hoo hoo hoo. Hum hum hum. The howling wind caused the bracelet on Yi Qinghan's wrist to hum. The power of the world controlled the area within a radius of 2 to 3 meters, forming a very small domain. No matter how the tornadoes from the outside world tore through space and time, they could not lift a single strand of hair on his body. Not even the corner of his clothes were moved. Even if the heavens fall and the earth rends, I will not move. Yi Qinghan stood beside the whirlpool. He did not choose to leave because he was the center of this matter. Boom! The divine master's power was getting stronger and stronger. It started to crush Xue Nine Emperor's power. Although Xue Nine Emperor's power was strong, he was still weaker than the divine master. He started to lose ground. Thud! Thud! Xue Jiuhuang stomped on the ground and his clothes flapped loudly. He retreated to the side of Yi Qinghan. His face was pale and his body was twisted. It seemed that he was about to lose. Brother Nine Emperor, no matter how disrespectful this old man may be to the royal family, I still respect the Supreme Sector Lord. What's more, this old man only disrespected the puppet regime supported by Zhuofeng and not the royal family as a whole. You haven't stepped out of your residence all these years. Even after the late emperor passed away, you didn't even want to come out. Do you know that this so-called left marshal is hiding the truth in the holy city? He used evil schemes and borrowed a knife to kill people. Step by step, he slaughtered his partners. In the end, he became the sole ruler. Now, he wants to use you to destroy the divine sect. He has sinister intentions and constantly weakened the divine nation's strength. If you don't believe him, go to the Saint City. The divine master suppressed Xue Nine Emperor in terms of power. In the end, he used the Divine Master's power to attack Shui Nine Emperor's Sea of Consciousness. Shui Nine Emperor's blood boiled and his soul was restless. He couldn't take it anymore and wanted to compromise. At this moment, Yi Qinghan put away the Incher's pot. He formed a seal with his palms and pressed one finger on Shui Nine Emperor's back. The boundless power of the world turned into Divine Master's power and rushed to his limbs and bones. He mobilized the Sector Lord's soul and shouted, "Snow God Lord, aren't you afraid that people will laugh at you? Marshal Shui was killed by you. Could it be that I also killed him with a borrowed knife? On my wedding day, it was also you who sent assassins to assassinate me and Marshal Shui. You even injured Marshal Shui with your own hands. Could it be that I also killed him with a borrowed knife? You killed Marshal Shui when I wasn't in the Saint City and assassinated countless officials. Could it be that I also killed him with a borrowed knife? Now, you attacked Ninth Emperor's soul to force him to submit. Could it be that I also killed him with a borrowed knife? Those who are truly sinister need no explanation. The Emperor naturally knows that he won't allow a despicable person like you to instigate him." His voice was like thunder and it rumbled continuously. It brought along a slight soul attack that blasted out in all directions. Shui Nine Emperor's soul trembled. With the support of Yi Qinghan's Divine Master's power and soul, he immediately turned the situation around. The two of them worked together and fought back crazily. They took advantage of the situation to fight for the territory. The mountains in all directions cracked and the earth split apart. Boom boom boom. Hua hua hua. The battle between the three of them caused a mountain flood, a rain of blood, and a strong wind. It was as if the end of the world had arrived. The army brought by Xiao Luochun worked together to block the aftermath of the battle. They were forced to retreat 1,000 miles before they could stabilize their footing. In terms of strength, Yi Qinghan alone could contend against a Divine Master. Moreover, he had the powerful Shui Nine Emperor with him. With the two of them working together, the Divine Master immediately showed signs of defeat and he was forced to retreat. A vicious look appeared in his eyes. He formed a seal with his palms and took out the Snow God Sek's most precious treasure, the Thunder God's lightning hammer. In an instant, thunder rumbled and tore apart the heaven and earth, destroying 100 miles of land. The Bian family's outer area was razed to the ground. Shui Nine Emperor. You are so stubborn. If you don't believe me, you can go to the Saint City and ask the imperial family's ancestral patriarch to investigate this lad's background. I don't believe that I can't find any clues. This lad came from a small city. How could he have so many powerful subordinates? Once the Thunder God's lightning hammer was used, the power of heaven and earth was controlled. It was comparable to a stone brick in its peak state. Coupled with the Divine Master's strength, it could definitely destroy 10,000 miles of land. Shui Nine Emperor didn't have a pseudo-world artifact, but Yi Qinghan did. The Incher's pot was filled with the power of the world. When Yi Qinghan activated it, it seemed to have the power to devour heaven and earth. It strongly resisted the Thunder God's lightning hammer. The power of the world and the power of thunder tore apart everything. Boom boom boom. Hua hua hua. Divine light shone for 10,000 miles, swallowing mountains and rivers. Yi Qinghan had lost his patience. He didn't want to be entangled with the Divine Master anymore. This person was definitely a big threat. Once Shui Nine Emperor became suspicious and investigated his background, he might be exposed. Hua hua. Yi Qinghan leaped up and formed a seal with his big hands. The Incher's pot turned into a giant pot. The pot's mouth turned into a black hole that swallowed 10,000 miles. The power of the world revolved around it and attacked the Divine Master. The Thunder God's lightning hammer bombarded the power of the world. It actually had the power to resist. The central area was destroyed, and it looked like the faraway auction house was about to be affected. All the strong martial artists within 10,000 miles were alarmed. They all rushed up and looked at the Bian family. They were shocked to see Yi Qinghan and the Divine Master fighting. Even Shui 9 Emperor felt powerless. In a battle with a pseudo-world artifact, even the supreme gods were powerless. Chapter 1348. Once the pseudo-world weapon was used, the mountains would crumble and the earth would crack. Moreover, this was only a territorial battle. Once it started, the aftermath would be enough to destroy all the territories on this side. Yi Qinghan was strong. With the Inshur's pot in hand, he was not at a disadvantage in a short period of time. They were two small realms apart. However, Yi Qinghan's strength lay in his soul. He had comprehended the power of the world. This was something the Divine Master could not catch up to. The Divine Master's face turned green. He did not expect Yi Qinghan's soul to be so strong. He had even taken the Inshur's pot from the Bian family. He could not do anything now. Once it started, Shui 9 Emperor would not help him. Then, Shui 9 Emperor would have an excuse to attack the divine sect. Shui 9 Emperor, say something. Do you want to investigate this person's background? The Divine Master shouted angrily. He was furious and used all his strength to send Yi Qinghan flying. He glared at Shui 9 Emperor and scolded angrily. I can investigate. What if Sui Feng is innocent? What if you killed my fifth brother? Shui 9 Emperor asked in a deep voice. If he and his cronies are innocent, I will apologize and use my death to comfort Marshal Shui. Marshal Shui has been used by others. I did not want to see the royal family fall into the hands of others. That is why I had to do this. Justice is in everyone's heart. I have a clear conscience. For the sake of the royal family, I am willing to bear all the crimes. The Divine Master said righteously. Yi Qinghan clenched his fists. He squinted at Shui 9 Emperor's cold eyes. He knew that this person could not be left alive. He had to kill him as soon as possible. All right. Since you want to investigate, I will allow you to do so after this auction. Justice is in everyone's heart. I want to protect the royal family. Marshal Shui's spirit will understand. Yi Qinghan replied fearlessly. Shui 9 Emperor was suspicious. He wanted to investigate Yi Qinghan. However, he did not know that Yi Qinghan had something on him. Shui Feng and Shui 9 Emperor's spirit were survivors of the Great Wilderness. There was no need to investigate. This was enough to kill Shui 9 Emperor. Since you're not afraid of being investigated, where did the elites of your left marshal's mansion come from? I have mobilized the most powerful intelligence network, but I still can't find out where they came from. They can't just appear out of thin air, can they? The God Lord asked coldly. Shui Jiuhuang also stared coldly at Yi Qinghan. He had seen the people from the left marshal's residence before. Every one of them was as strong as a top genius. It was impossible for it to appear for no reason. Yi Qinghan's lips curled into a cold smile as he hoarsely said, the left marshal's residence can only mobilize those few trusted aides. If you want to investigate, I'll tell you one by one. Zhu Wuxin is a subordinate of Marshal Shui and is known as the military saint. Anyone can investigate him. Tong Tong, I don't think anyone knows better than you who he is. He is a survivor of the Tong family that your divine sect annihilated and was saved by me. The rest of the people are mostly the same. I can make up 10,000, or even 1,000,000, false accusations. If you think there's something wrong with my background, then show me the evidence and I'll let you do whatever you want with me. If you can't, then don't use such an interrogative tone with me. As the master of divine sect, don't you think it's childish? The Divine Master was speechless, but he was sure that there was something wrong with Yi Qinghan's group. Humph. Time will prove everything. Ever since you appeared, the imperial family has been in constant disputes and the nation's strength has been weakened. We're not fools. The Divine Master coldly snorted. Yes, time will prove everything. You probably don't remember how many people you've assassinated and destroyed over the years, but some people do. Since you want to investigate, then don't even think about running away. Who doesn't have secrets that they don't want others to know? You, the Ninth Emperor, and I all have some forbidden places that we don't want others to step into. Am I right, Snow God Master, Ninth Emperor? Yi Qinghan whispered with a sly smile. The Ninth Emperor's heart skipped a beat as he looked at Yi Qinghan's confident eyes. He was secretly shocked as he recalled the day when Yi Qinghan entered the Ninth Emperor's residence and asked to take the Snow Emperor spirit as his adopted daughter. He suspected that Yi Qinghan had recognized her identity as a remnant of the wilderness. Damn it, I should have promised him that day. Once he started to train her, I would never expose her identity as an emperor spirit. Otherwise, it would be a capital offense to train a remnant of the wilderness. The Ninth Emperor was secretly furious and did not know what to do. The Divine Master's expression changed as well. Over the years, he had assassinated many members of the imperial family and some ministers through hell. Others might not know, but the Lord of Hell must know. He might even have left some evidence. Once he fought with Yi Qinghan, no one would benefit. The three of them were silent. No one wanted to lose both sides, especially Yi Qinghan. Once the investigation started, no one could guarantee that the imperial family would not find out the origin of the insane sect. But at this moment, he appeared to be the most indifferent, as if he was not afraid of being found out. This meant that there was nothing wrong with him. I am still an assistant minister. Today, in the case of the ginseng fruit tree, the Bian family went crazy and slaughtered the giant gods to provide life energy for the ginseng fruit tree. They should be exterminated. If they refuse to submit, I will punish them severely. Ninth Emperor, do you have any objections? Yi Qinghan asked in a dignified manner. After a moment of silence, the Ninth Emperor said coldly. No objections, kill. Listen to my orders, exterminate the Bian family. All the adults will be sent to the border river to protect the snow country and the divine world. Those who dare to resist or escape, kill them without mercy. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan soared into the sky with the Snow Border Army's chief commander seal in his hand and shouted in a deep voice. Yes. Xia Luochun was already dead, so the army naturally had to listen to the Snow Border Army's chief commander's orders. Even if Xia Luochun was not dead, Yi Qinghan took out the chief commander's seal and the army would not listen to his orders. Boom boom boom. The army rushed towards the Bian family and surrounded them from all directions. Even the Divine Masters had no right to interfere. The Divine Sect had no right to interfere in the matters of the imperial court. The army rushed into the Bian family and those who resisted were all slaughtered. The majority of the people were captured without resistance. Regardless of gender, they were all restricted. A grand family was suppressed just like that. Bian Changlong roared and wanted to resist. However, he was sucked away by Yi Qinghan with the Inshir's pot. In a blink of an eye, he was refined into a pool of dirty water. Bianing was still alive because Yi Qinghan did not want him to die. Now, he was being stepped on, living a life worse than death. Suofeng, you bastard. You will die a horrible death. Bianing roared and cursed. His face was distorted as he struggled to stand up. However, that foot was like a heavenly pillar pressing down on his body. Yi Qinghan sneered and said hoarsely, since you don't give me face, don't blame me for not giving you face. I am proving to you what I said before. This time, the warning was directed at the Divine Lord and Xue Jiuhuang. The message was very clear. If you give me face, I will give you face. If you don't give me face, you will end up worse than the Bian family. The Divine Master clenched his fists and regretted offending this despicable person. This despicable person was vengeful and cunning. It was impossible to guard against him. Xue Jiuhuang was expressionless. At this moment, he had to consider whether or not to investigate Yi Qinghan. If he could not find anything, then Yi Qinghan would definitely take revenge. Once the Snow Emperor's spirit was used as an excuse, even he, Xue Jiuhuang, would be confiscated. Chapter 1349. After destroying the Bian family, Yi Qinghan left, not even giving Xue Nine Emperor any face. He had already shown his power. Now, it was up to Xue Nine Emperor to see if he knew how to behave. If he didn't, the first one to die would be him, not the Divine Master. Arriving at the herb garden, Yi Qinghan saw that the entire tree was filled with ripe ginseng fruits. However, he knew that these ginseng fruits were filled with evil. Who knew how many lives of giant gods and even supreme gods were involved in them? Since they're all ripe, we can't waste them. Let's take them all, Yi Qinghan said calmly. When the divine bird heard that, it rushed up the ginseng tree and took half of the fruits. The other half was snatched by Xian Yanxue. The divine bird was furious and roared at Xian Yanxue, "You despicable and shameless person. You ran away when you were in danger and almost got me caught. I will never trust you again." Xian Yanxue rolled his eyes. When it came to shamelessness, no one could compare to the divine bird. He couldn't help but say disdainfully, "I went to help you ask for reinforcements. If I was trapped, would you have come to save me? Of course not. Don't even think about it. I won't even ask for reinforcements. I'll just let you be killed." The divine bird retorted proudly. Everyone shrugged their shoulders. This pair of exceptional goods were indeed brothers. Their style of doing things was the same. They would rather die than let their friend die. They were extremely lowly. Yi Qinghan's heart was heavy. He wasn't sure if he could suppress Xue Nine Emperor, but he definitely couldn't suppress the Divine Master. Once they investigated, it would be difficult for the insane sect to explain their origins. Let's go back first. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and said hoarsely. Everyone could see that Yi Qinghan was in a bad mood, so they stopped fooling around. They took all the resources in the Bian family's herb garden and left. Back at the auction house's relay station, everyone began to cultivate crazily. In the face of great pressure, they all wanted to share some of the pressure with Yi Qinghan. Mo Li, Jiang Jingtian, Li Feng, and other super experts were working hard. Tong Tong had the boundary bone and was improving at a rapid pace. With endless resources to support him, it was difficult for him not to improve. When Xue Jiuhuang returned to the relay station, he felt even more depressed. He couldn't be sure if Yi Qinghan knew the true identity of the Snow Emperor's spirit. Standing on the rooftop and enjoying the cold wind, Xue Jiuhuang was deep in thought. There were only two ways to protect himself and the residents of the Nine Emperors. The first option was to secretly assassinate Yi Qinghan, but Yi Qinghan's strength was definitely not as simple as it seemed. Just based on the fact that he could fight against a divine master, it was almost impossible to assassinate him. If they tried to assassinate him, they would only infuriate him. Therefore, the first option was blocked. The second option was to kill the Snow Emperor's spirit and Xue Feng. Then, he would kill his most beloved desolate slave. Thinking of the second option, Xue Jiuhuang's face turned ferocious. The corners of his mouth twitched, and his iron fists twisted the railing. If I want to investigate Xue Feng, I have to keep myself clean so that I won't have to worry about the consequences. Otherwise, I'll be inviting trouble to myself. I can't afford to take the risk. Once I lose, with Xue Feng's temperament, he'll definitely wipe out the residents of the Nine Emperors. Xue Jiuhuang sighed. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that Yi Qinghan knew the identity of the Snow Emperor's spirit. What should I do? Cooperate with Xue Feng and destroy the divine sect. The divine sect has been arrogant and domineering all these years. If I can destroy it, the imperial family will be able to dominate. However, if I want to destroy Zhuofeng, I have to kill the desolate slave and the 2 children. Xue Zhihuang's eyes were filled with reluctance, but in the end, his will became firmer. Dong! 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 Xue Zhihuang's fingertips tapped on the railing, producing a unique rhythm. A black-clothed man quickly appeared behind him. He was expressionless, like an ordinary soldier, but he was very dignified and steady. Emperor, what are your orders? The black-clothed man asked respectfully. Go and investigate the origins of the group from the left marshal's residence, including Zhuofeng's. After you find out, do not alert anyone. Come and report to me immediately. Xue Zhihuang lowered his voice and said in a hoarse voice. Yes, Emperor. Can I use any method? The black-clothed man asked in a deep voice. Yes, you can. Including attacking them, forcing them to use their origin energy, and investigating their identities through their cultivation techniques. I suspect that they are survivors of the Great Wilderness. Xue Zhihuang nodded solemnly. Then, he reminded, that group of people is very strong. There are more than 20 supreme gods. Although they are only beginner gods, their battle prowess is definitely elite among those of the same level. Therefore, when you attack them, you have to take advantage of when they are alone. The black-clothed man bowed again and then disappeared from the relay station. Yi Qinghan withdrew his divine sense. Although he could not hear what Xue Zhihuang and the black-clothed man were saying, he was becoming more and more vigilant toward Xue Zhihuang. At this moment, Xiao Yu quietly appeared in Yi Qinghan's room. She had seen Xue Zhihuang and the black-clothed man in the inn opposite, but she did not know what they were talking about. Xiao Yu, who was the person that Xue Zhihuang met just now? Yi Qinghan slightly opened his eyes and asked in a low voice. He is Lin Xian, the deputy commander and chief advisor of Snow Nine Emperor. He is extremely intelligent and powerful, so he shouldn't lose to me. He has a group of extremely powerful death warriors, all of whom were selected from the elite troops of the Snow World Army. They are supreme gods, and there are about 300 of them. They formed a special elite squad called Hunting Eagle. They are invincible, and once killed the most difficult supreme expert of the Nanwei realm. This group of people has disappeared for many years, and now that Lin Xian has appeared, it means that this squad has also awakened. Xiaoya's expression was solemn. It seemed that she was also very vigilant against this Hunting Eagle. Yi Qinghan frowned. He did not expect Xue Zhihuang to be in control of such an army. It seems that killing him would take some effort. Although a single supreme god was powerful, it was not to the point of despair. However, once a special elite team was formed, it would be terrifying. To be able to join the Snow Realm army meant that one's strength was outstanding. If one could become a member of the Snow Realm army, then one would be even stronger. The members of this Hunting Eagle were all Kiliarchs and even tribunals of the elite troops. They were the elites of the elites. Their individual combat strength would not be any weaker than the group of people from the insane sect. Xue Zhihuang, you used the Hunting Eagle not to deal with the divine sect, but to deal with me. Have you thought it through? Yi Qinghan's lips curled into a ruthless arc. He walked up the stairs to the top floor step by step until he arrived at Xue Zhihuang's room. Dong dong dong. Yi Qinghan raised his hand and knocked on Xue Zhihuang's door. Ninth Emperor, I, Zhuofeng, am here to pay my respects. Yi Qinghan straightened his body and said indifferently. Xue Zhihuang's eyes flashed coldly in the room. He flicked his finger and broke the barrier. He said in a hoarse voice, "Come in." Yi Qinghan smiled as he pushed open the door and entered. He looked at the dignified Xue Zhihuang and sat on the chair opposite him. He looked straight into Xue Zhihuang's eyes and asked curiously, "Ninth Emperor, I would like to ask, what is the consequence of harboring the survivors of the Great Wilderness?" Xue Zhihuang's eyes turned cold. His veins bulged as he stared at Yi Qinghan. Chapter 1350 Seeing Yi Qinghan's evil smile, Xue Zhihuang's Dao heart, which was as steady as a rock, was disturbed. General Zhua, what do you mean? Yi Qinghan crossed his legs and leaned on the chair. He said evilly, I like to make friends. If someone gives me 30% respect, I'll return 70%. If someone gives me 10% respect, I'll treat him like a brother. If someone doesn't give me face, I like to stomp him to death. Don't you think that's right? Just say it. Xue Zhihuang was not sure if Yi Qinghan knew the identity of the Snow Emperor's spirit, so he did not want to reveal anything. The Snow Emperor's spirit, this little girl is very intelligent. I like her very much. Of course, Xue Feng is not bad either. It's their honor to have a father like you. However, you don't seem to want to cultivate the Snow Emperor's spirit. Are you worried that her identity will be exposed and affect your position and the safety of your family? Yi Qinghan squinted at Xue Zhihuang and went straight to the point. He wanted Xue Zhihuang to give up. You found out. Xue Zhihuang roared. Yi Qinghan smiled evilly and said lightly, I didn't get your permission to take the Snow Emperor's spirit out. I don't think you'll be angry, right? Xue Zhihuang stood up and looked at Yi Qinghan suspiciously. He suspected that Yi Qinghan was lying. With the defense of the 9 Emperors' mansion, no one could take the Snow Emperor's spirit away secretly. You don't believe me? It's okay. You can send someone to check if the Snow Emperor's spirit is in the 9 Emperors' mansion. Yi Qinghan said lightly. Xue Zhihuang's veins bulged as he looked at Yi Qinghan coldly. He was filled with killing intent. What do you want? Xue Zhihuang asked angrily. As for the Snow Queen's spirit, I won't harm a single strand of her hair. I won't tell anyone that you're harboring the lost races of the wilderness. I'll even help you keep this a secret, but you have to give me face first. Otherwise, I'll treat you like a brother. Yi Qinghan's eyes shone with a light that seemed to be able to control the world. People were in awe of him and did not dare to disobey him. Xue Zhihuang stared at Yi Qinghan as if he wanted to see through him. However, when the two looked at each other, Yi Qinghan's eyes maintained a faint confidence in absolute control. Your ultimate goal is to destroy the God sect? Xue 9 Emperor asked suspiciously. No, of course not. I originally didn't want to deal with Divine Sect, but they didn't give me any face and blocked my path, so I took care of them. Yi Qinghan said indifferently as if Divine Sect was a wall that could be crushed with a wave of his hand. Then what's your ultimate goal? Xue 9 Emperor questioned. Yi Qinghan laughed and said, if I say that I want to help the royal family unify the world and destroy those superpowers, you won't believe me. However, as a member of the Snow Country's divine world, I naturally hope that Divine Nation can unify the 9 worlds and become more powerful than the deserted world. With that, Yi Qinghan turned and left, leaving Xue 9 Emperor with a mysterious back view. A large group of experts appeared on the streets of the auction house. They were all unfamiliar, and their power systems and divine power waves were not from the Snow Country's divine world. Yi Qinghan stood on the 4th floor of the inn and watched the passers-by. He realized that people from the 7 worlds had all arrived. They were all the top existences. They were either princes with top-level supreme gods, or overlords or tycoons. They came in groups of 3 to 5 for pseudo-world weapons and materials. The auction house had a wide network and had branches in other worlds. They had the authority to invite experts from the outside world to participate in the auction, just like how other worlds could invite the Snow Country's divine world to participate in the auction. This group of people was very low-key. They came quietly, entered the inn, and waited for the auction to begin. 3 days later, the auction began. The experts all received a notice from the auction house, the Mu family. This was a small-scale auction, and there were only a few resources up for auction. The participants were either representatives of the 7 worlds or financial groups. There were more than 30 forces participating in the auction, but there were only 7 items up for auction. The competition was bound to be crazy. Yi Qinghan and Xue Nine Emperor entered the auction house alone. Xiaoye was wearing a mask and a white veil. She looked like a fairy, but no one dared to go up and talk to her. The Master of Heaven, Wang Zhongjuan of the Wang family, had come. Yi Qinghan looked at a crippled old man walking over with a cold expression. His lips curled into an evil smile. The person in charge of the Yantian pavilion, the ancient Lich King, had his legs cut off by Yi Qinghan. After so many years, most of the older generation had died from their injuries. Only this old man was still walking around, but not many people knew him. Xue Nine Emperor also did not know the ancient Lich King. He frowned and looked at him, but the latter glared at him coldly. This person is very powerful. He is actually a fake world lord. I have never heard of him before. Xue Nine Emperor secretly transmitted his voice to Yi Qinghan. He found it hard to believe. Yi Qinghan smiled and replied, "He is the ancient Lich King. His original form is a lascivious snake. Back then, he knelt down and licked the Supreme World Lord. His cultivation soared. In the end, his tail was cut off by the Great Desolation's father on the battlefield of the Great Desolation world. In the end, he became a deserter. There is nothing to be afraid of." When Xue Nine Emperor heard this, he looked at Yi Qinghan in shock. He could not understand how a person he did not know could know so much and in such detail. "Are you the reincarnation of an immemorial almighty expert?" Xue Nine Emperor asked seriously. Yi Qinghan nodded without hesitation. It was considered that he admitted his previous life. At this moment, Xue Nine Emperor no longer looked high and mighty. Instead, he placed Yi Qinghan on a higher level than himself. He bowed slightly and asked, "May I know which senior is from the immemorial era?" Yi Qinghan said coldly, "There are some things that you will naturally find out when the time comes. Back then, there weren't many almighties who fought alongside the Supreme Realm Lord. Who do you think I am?" Xue Nine Emperor did not dare to say anything more. The people who entered the auction house were very quiet. They each chose a room and sat down. They did not even say a word. The huge room was brightly lit. Every room was filled with delicacies, rare divine fruits, and divine wine. Xiao Yu tasted the wine. Her big eyes looked around as she looked at each power. All of them were top-notch existences. Yi Qinghan looked at everyone through the window. However, other than the Lich King, he did not recognize anyone else. However, these people's cultivation was extremely terrifying. They were like ordinary old men with their auras hidden. However, when they burst out, it was enough to destroy a part of the world. The atmosphere was tense. The various powers did not interact with others. Moreover, the hostility between them was very strong. They could not even nod at each other. If it was any other occasion, they would have already started fighting. At this moment, an old man from the Mu family walked in. He looked at everyone with a smile and bowed, "Thank you for your support. I have already informed you about the treasures that will be auctioned. I will not introduce you one by one. Everyone knows the rules of the auction. The highest bidder wins. I hope you will not make things difficult for the Mu family. Brother Mu, we know the rules. Let's start. It's better to end it early so as not to waste our time." An old man from the true martial domain said indifferently. Everyone nodded in agreement. These people were racing against time. They hoped to use the pseudo-world weapon to enter the danger zone and become a pseudo-world lord. They even wanted to surpass the pseudo-world lord and become a supreme world lord. Chapter 1351. When the auction started, the Lich King's wrinkled face revealed an impatient expression. He coldly said, "Let's start with the pseudo-world artifact. I'm only interested in that." Everyone was silent. That was right. The most important thing was the pseudo-world artifact. Once they got the pseudo-world artifact, who would care about the materials? Even if they got it, they might not be able to successfully forge it. The probability of success was only 30%. The Lich King was the strongest. He was worthy of being an immemorial expert. No one refuted his words, not even the Mu family. Since Senior has spoken, Junior has no choice but to obey. We'll start with the pseudo-world artifact. This is a naturally formed spear. It's 10 feet long and as thick as a child's wrist. It weighs millions of pounds. Its material is unknown, and it has never been seen before. The tip of the spear is naturally formed and filled with the power of the world. It's a top-quality divine weapon. The Mu family elder waved his hand, and 2 supreme gods appeared behind him. They carried a long iron box and appeared in front of everyone. Boom! Once the iron box landed on the ground caved in and cracks extended. The divine spear had not yet appeared, but it emitted a heavy and imposing aura that made people revere it. Everyone stared at the long iron box at the same time. The Lich King stood up slightly and stretched out his neck. His desire was self-evident. Yi Qinghan leaned back in his chair. His fingertips kept brushing across the iron wooden table. A 5-finger mark appeared on the table, emitting an ear-piercing sound. His eyes were focused as he stared at the iron box. The power of the world revolved around the box. Even the peerless material of the iron box could not hide the divine might of the pseudo-world artifact. Precious light flowed all around, triggering and suppressing all techniques. Buzz! 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 The auction house was extremely spacious, and the sound kept reverberating. More than 30 experts had complicated expressions on their faces. The Mu family elder's face was flushed red. To be able to auction such a divine weapon was definitely unprecedented. According to the requirements of the bidder, the starting bid is a large state's territory. What's left are resources such as snow-step divine stones, rare treasures, divine weapon materials. My auction house will calculate the price of the treasures according to the grade of the treasures, and the highest bidder will get this divine spear. The Mu clan's elder stared at the overlords and reminded them in a deep voice, overlords of the various divine nations, once you obtain the treasures, you are not allowed to snatch back the territories and materials you paid. Otherwise, the auction house will never trade with your divine nations and will leave your divine nations forever. I hope that the other divine nations and overlords can also guarantee that they will attack together and destroy the auction house. Otherwise, who would be willing to auction such treasures in the future? That's right. This old man agrees with this suggestion. The Lich King nodded. Xue Jiuhuang and the others nodded in agreement. Although those overlords weren't divine nations, they definitely controlled more than one state. Even the divine sect had 3 states as subsidiary territories. Yi Qinghan smiled as he looked at the crowd and memorized their auras. This group of people was going to be enemies, including Xue Jiuhuang. The next time they met, they would definitely fight to the death. Everyone, please state your base bids. The Mu clan's elder said in a deep voice. Different states were obviously different. Some were rich in resources, while others were barren and lacking in resources. Some states were very suitable for humans to live in and for clans to recuperate. However, some states were different. Ferocious beasts could wreak havoc and there could be beast hordes at any time. They could even be engulfed by natural disasters. It was like a torn land. Only adventurers would go to such places. No one else would go there. Yi Qinghan looked at Xue Jiuhuang and wrote down the name of a state in his heart. It was the Fu Dragon State. Its geographical location was very good. It was close to the god of Fortune City. To the east was the sea, to the south was the god of Fortune City, and to the west was the god of Fortune City. Whether it was in terms of resources or geographical location, it was very good. Moreover, there weren't many powerful forces there. It would be easy to clear it out and hand it over to the owner of the divine spear. Xue Zhihuang looked at the name of the state Yi Qinghan wrote down and didn't refute. The others were still discussing which state to use as the base bid. This base bid was very important. Otherwise, it wouldn't be used as the base bid. After half an incense stick's worth of time, everyone put down a piece of parchment and waited for a joint bid. Once the base bid was made, it couldn't be changed. The Mu clan's elder looked at the 30 forces with anticipation. He said in a deep voice, "Everyone, please state your base bids." Shua. Everyone put down the parchment. Yi Qinghan also put up the parchment and hung it on the board beside him. Suddenly, his brows twitched. He looked towards the roof because he had just discovered a wave of god power there. There were quite a few experts hidden in the auction house, including 1 pseudo-world lords and 4 peak paramount gods. This was the foundation of the auction house, and this was only one of its branches. For a single divine kingdom to have an auction house like this, it was easy to imagine how much stronger it was than any of the other organizations in the universe. Very soon, the Mu clan's elder wrote down the base bid of each force on a board. All the states were very famous for being rich. They were rich in resources and had excellent geographical locations. It was very suitable for them to be independent. The Fu Dragon state's advantage wasn't too obvious. However, it was the only place close to the sea. Even if the family was in trouble, they could escape to the depths of the sea. Seems like all the forces want this divine spear very much. The Mu clan's elder was very familiar with the 7 realms. He knew that all the states were of the highest quality. At this moment, he was very excited. Xiaoya moved her body restlessly. She glanced at Yi Qinghan from the corner of her eyes and realized that he didn't have any emotions. It was as if he didn't care about the divine spear. "Don't move. Later, we'll work together. When I bid, you just have to bid a bit higher." Yi Qinghan's lips twitched. His soul rushed into Xiaoya's consciousness and sent a trace of divine sense into her body. No one could eavesdrop. Everyone was very excited. They sat up straight and waited for the bids to be called. "Everyone, do you have any bids?" The Mu clan's elder smiled. 3 million snow-step divine stones, 13 mid-grade supreme god pills, and half a kilogram of god congealing serum. The total price is about 10 million snow-step divine stones. The divine master was the first to bid. 10 million snow-step divine stones. Even a divine nation wouldn't be able to take out that much. It would affect the empire's foundation. 4 million snow-step divine stones, 1 Empyrean god bamboo. It's a material of a supreme-grade pseudo-world artifact. It's priceless. 3 supreme-grade supreme god pills, and 1 immemorial dragon bone. The various overlords bid one after another. The price made everyone blush with shame. Any one of them could nurture a super force. At this moment, the Lich King looked down at everyone with disdain. He said hoarsely, "This divine spear is mine. Other than the base price of the Dragon Divine Continent, I'll add another 10 million snow-step divine stones, 1 immemorial resentment dragon bone, 5 supreme-grade supreme god pills, 1 extreme supreme god secret technique, and 30 supreme-grade goddesses. All of them are outstanding beauties. Their ability to serve others will definitely make you drool. It's much better than cultivating." Ha ha ha, everyone blushed with shame. Other than these women, this price was absolutely terrifying. Yi Qinghan's lips twitched. He hadn't even called out a bid yet, and this Lich King had already called out such a terrifying price. With so many years of accumulation, it wasn't something that others could compare to. That cultivation technique was enough to make many flinch. Chapter 1352. The Lich King had existed since ancient times, and he had the Yutian Pavilion to amass wealth for him. His wealth was enough to rival a country, and he was not inferior to the number one financial group in the world. Moreover, he did not have a family, so he did not need to consume resources. After accumulating wealth for billions of years, even a god nation could not compare to him. The various divine kingdoms and superpowers frowned when they heard the Lich King's bid. Yi Qinghan, on the other hand, glared at the Lich King and clenched his fists. The primordial resentment dragon was Yi Qinghan's life and death brother, yet its spine was taken by this bastard. This was a great humiliation. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan slowly got up. His golden armor let out a crisp sound as he pushed open the door and looked at the iron box. He said coldly, "My starting price is hidden dragon state and a set of extreme god techniques for mortals to pseudo-sector lord level. As long as the owner of the god spear provides me with resources, I will refine 10 extreme god pills for you for free, 1 pseudo-sector lord extreme god pill." Whoosh! Everyone looked at Yi Qinghan in shock and disbelief. During the primordial age, pseudo-world lord god pills were extremely rare. Within the 9 worlds, only 3 people were able to refine them. The Great Desolation Warlord, the Snow Nation's Divine World's Medicine God Taoist, and the Spiritual World's True 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 Spiritual World. Now, billions of years later, the Great Desolate Battle Overlord was already dead. The Medicine God Taoist was also killed by the Great Desolate Battle Overlord. The True Spirit World Overlord was severely injured and still hadn't come out of seclusion. Right now, if one wanted to become a pseudo-world overlord, it would all depend on one's own luck and talent. Thus, there weren't more than 10 pseudo-world overlords. Huang Peng was one, Lich King was another. The rest of the pseudo-world overlords were either in seclusion or seeking opportunities to become a world overlord. Pseudo-sector lords were even rarer than sector lords. From this, one could see how precious pseudo-sector lord-level god pills were. This wasn't something resources could compare to. Once he broke through to the pseudo-sector lord level, he would be a peak existence. Even sector lords would come out to congratulate him. This time, the Lich King knew that he had lost. He was furious and coldly stared at Yi Qinghan. The corners of his mouth rose, and his eagle-like eyes were incomparably sharp. "Brat, you don't know who I am, do you?" The Lich King's killing intent surged as he asked threateningly. Everyone looked at Yi Qinghan as if they were watching a good show. The God Lord was even more excited. He hoped that the Lich King and Yi Qinghan would fight. When the time came, both sides would suffer, and the divine sect would be able to survive. Xiaoye also looked worriedly at Yi Qinghan, only to discover that the evil smile on Yi Qinghan's lips made her shudder. Yi Qinghan bent his body slightly and leaned against the railing. He grinned, revealing a row of white teeth. His eyes were deep as he looked at the Lich King and said in a hoarse voice, "You're just a little lewd snake without a tail. Do you really think you're an ancient Lich King? Do you know what kind of terrifying existence dares to call themselves demon kings?" Boom! The Lich King was enraged, as if someone had stepped on his sore spot. He attacked and was about to kill Yi Qinghan. Just at this moment, an unparalleled pressure came from the auction house, directly locking onto the Lich King. "Lich King, this is an auction house. Please abide by the rules. Otherwise, you will be excluded from the next auction." A deep voice came from upstairs. It was filled with will, causing the entire auction house to feel extremely oppressive, making it hard for people to breathe. A powerful soul attribute sovereign. His cultivation had already reached the Great Circle, and he was only half a step away from becoming a realm lord. Even a peak realm lord couldn't kill him, because his speed and soul weren't inferior to a realm lord's. Yi Qinghan had goosebumps. Only now did he realize how terrifying this faintly discernible existence was. This person was from the immemorial era, but he couldn't remember. Perhaps he was a rising star, or perhaps he was someone who had hidden back then. However, he didn't participate in the battle of the Great Wasteland Domain. The Lich King's mouth twitched as he roared malevolently, "A trash like you actually dares to insult this seat? Can't you see? He didn't insult you, he's just speaking the truth. Those who dare to call themselves Demon Kings are all at the Great Circle realm. Their soul and speed are already at the Realm Lord level, and they are one small realm higher than this old man. Even I don't dare to call myself human ancestor. What qualifications do you have to call yourself Demon King?" The pressure from upstairs grew heavier, directly restricting the Lich King on the spot, causing him to be unable to move. This was the difference. There was also a difference between a fake realm lord. Although this person hadn't reached the Great Circle of the Great Circle realm, he was already extremely close. If he participated in the battle of the Great Wasteland Domain, he would be equal to one of the 8 realm lords, Yi Qinghan. The Lich King's face turned ashen. Among the fake realm lords, regardless of whether they were at the Great Circle realm or an ordinary realm lord like him, there were only 10 of them. The demon race was even fewer, only 1/3 of them. Even if he was refuted, it would be by the demon race experts. It wasn't up to the humans to make irresponsible remarks. Moreover, Yi Qinghan was just an ordinary paramount god. Clap, clap, clap. Yi Qinghan lightly clapped his hands and said indifferently, "Senior is still the sensible one, unlike some half-baked people. Their cultivation isn't high enough, yet they call themselves Demon Kings. Their tails have been chopped off, and even if they transform into human form, they are still just a cripple. Aren't they afraid of others laughing their heads off? Who are you? Why do you know so much?" The Lich King's anger burned as he coldly questioned. "This marshal is Zhuofeng, an assistant minister of the Snow Country and God World. Isn't it easy to know who you are? The pavilion master of the beautiful Sky Pavilion controls a group of beautiful female assassins, and they are all hiding in the Fragrance Pavilion. Is there a need to know more? I can even dig out all your secrets." Yi Qinghan's lips curled up, causing others to shudder. The Lich King's mouth twitched, and his killing intent intensified. He said coldly, "Do you know the consequences of offending this old man?" Yi Qinghan smiled indifferently and said indifferently, "I'm not interested in this, but I know that those who offend me will die miserably. I want this divine spear. It's best if you agree. In the future, when you see me, you'd better stay away from me. I'll let bygones be bygones. Otherwise, I'll uproot your Yentian pavilion within 3 years." Arrogant and domineering, the aura of an emperor filled the auction house, and for a moment, the existence upstairs was intimidated. "I'm afraid you won't live for 3 years. This godly spear is mine for sure. As long as the owner of the divine spear agrees, my beautiful Sky Pavilion will belong to you. I only want this pseudo-world weapon." The Lich King was cutting off all means of retreat. External resources were a burden. Only when his own strength was strong would he be truly strong. With this divine spear, even the half-step absolute realm existence upstairs wouldn't dare to speak to him in such a manner. Yi Qinghan shook his head and said indifferently, "I won't raise the price anymore. I can tell you the name of the divine technique that can be cultivated to the pseudo-world lord level. It's the flowing water sword technique, Xiao Yoshui's famous sword technique. Everyone here is an overlord, so you should know the origin and power of the flowing water sword technique." Boom! Shui Jiuhuang stood up excitedly. Even the God Lord and Xiaoye were stunned. Chapter 1353. Xiao Lushui was an existence even more terrifying than Ling Yan. At least in terms of individual combat strength, Xiao Lushui was already a king and was titled human ancestor. He was the number 1 person below the sector lord and was definitely a paragon. However, after being titled human ancestor, he disappeared in less than half a year, which was about 300 years before the battle of the Great Wasteland Domain. Sword force flowing like an immortal, one move breaking through the 9 worlds. This was the description of Xiao Lushui's strength. However, no one knew that this Xiao Lushui had challenged Yi Qinghan and was killed by Yi Qinghan in 3,000 moves. His soul and memories were stolen, and a complete set of techniques was stolen. Only when he recovered the memories of the Sector Lord's soul did he slowly recall this sword technique. Its power was boundless. It was definitely a top-level existence. Is this true? Do you have proof that the secret technique in your hands is the flowing water sword technique? An old man walked out from upstairs. His immortal aura radiated in all directions, and he was filled with treasure light. He was right in front of Yi Qinghan, but it felt like he wasn't a mountain, like he was looking at fog. It was very vague. This was the half-step paragon. Yi Qinghan raised his eyes to look at the old man. He was sure he didn't recognize him. He should be a rising star. Otherwise, there was no way he wouldn't recognize him. The old man was also staring at Yi Qinghan. His eyes were like lightning, moving one's soul, making one not dare to look straight at him. The anticipation in his eyes was thicker than anyone else's. Because he knew Yi Qinghan, he naturally understood the power of the flowing water sword technique. It seems Senior knows the flowing water sword technique. Then please give me a decent divine sword. Junior will display the essence of the flowing water sword technique. 3 moves will be enough to prove that my sword technique is the flowing water sword technique. Yi Qinghan said indifferently. The old man waved his hand, and a supreme god weapon appeared. Divine light accompanied it, shaking the entire auction house. The sound of the sword resounded in the room, extremely pleasing to the ear. This is, the clear wind sword, ranked 4th of the 10 great ancient swords. Yi Qinghan said in surprise. This old man is curious. Who are you? Why do you know so much? Not to mention you, even the current king of hell, Shui Jiuhuang, and the sect master of the divine sect don't know about the 10 great ancient swords. How do you know? The old man frowned and asked. Sword out of the clouds, momentum like flowing water, standing like an immortal, smiling at all living beings. Yi Qinghan looked at the old man and whispered a few words. The elder's eyes were filled with shock, and his fingers trembled as he hoarsely asked, You're a descendant of human King Shao? Successor of another generation? He's still alive. Yi Qinghan smiled but did not say anything. The more he said, the more mistakes he would make. It was best to give such a vague answer so that he could change his words when he was about to be exposed. After all, he did not personally admit that he was Xiao Yoshui's descendant. The old man looked pensive as he extended his hand and placed the clear wind sword in Yi Qinghan's hand. Yi Qinghan gripped the Qingfeng sword and instantly became one with the sword. It was as if he was born with a sword body. With a light shake of his wrist, the sword will condensed and the way of the sword roared. Yi Qinghan's figure moved in the narrow auction house like an immortal. His figure was elegant like flowing water. Sword like flowing water, breaking through the 9 worlds. Xiu. The sword light was like lightning. In this narrow space, Yi Qinghan could control it very well. The tip of the sword broke through the void and went straight for the Divine Master's throat. Before the sword reached him, the sword chi had already locked onto his throat. Humph! The Divine Master was shocked. His figure suddenly retreated and he almost fell down in panic. He supported himself with one hand on the table and leaned back. The sword chi swept past his face. Divine sword out of the sheath, overlooking all living beings. Swish! The sword light swept across like starlight. Wherever it passed, all living beings withered. The Divine Master was directly enveloped by it. The sword chi easily attacked the Divine Master's body. The Divine Master screamed and used his trump card. The pseudo-world artifact was taken out. The chi rushed through the galaxy and the auction house was almost blown away. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's sword gently swiped across the Divine Master's neck. His figure flashed and returned to the old man's side. He looked at the bloody wound on the Divine Master's neck with a sinister smile. The power of his sword was self-evident. If Yi Qinghan was at the same level as the Divine Master, he could have killed him in an instant. The Divine Master would not have been able to use the pseudo-world artifact and would have died. The Divine Master was furious. He stared coldly at Yi Qinghan. If it were not for the old man, he would have pounced on him and crushed him. Snow God Lord, please don't be angry. I was just demonstrating the flowing water sword technique for you to see. Your cultivation is the worst here. As a junior, I could only choose you. I hope you won't be angry, Yi Qinghan said with a smile. Gotcha. The Divine Master was so angry that he clenched his fists. His veins were popping out. His hatred for Yi Qinghan and the Divine Bird had surpassed everything. This pair of master and servant had played the Divine Master like a monkey. At that moment, the Divine Bird slowly flew out of the bloodline. He looked at the Divine Master with a shocked expression and said wretchedly, "Oh, isn't this the great Divine Master? Why is your face red again? Did the Divine Sect lose something again? It would have been better if the Divine Bird had not come out." Now that he was out, his words were enough to anger someone to death. The Divine Master could not catch his breath. His blood was unstable and he spat out a mouthful of essence blood. He looked at the Divine Bird and Yi Qinghan with a pale face. The sharp light in his eyes was like a divine knife that could slice a person alive. Cough. Cough. The Divine Master was already injured. At that moment, he was about to explode. I say, Snow God Master, why are you so hot-tempered? Can't you be a little calmer? You're the Divine Master, and you're at the top of the hierarchy. You should be calm and take care of your juniors. How did someone as petty as you manage to cultivate to this level? The Divine Bird mocked in disdain. Huff. 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 The Divine Master's breathing was rapid. He staggered back a few steps and sat on a chair in front of him. His hands could not stop trembling. Tisk, tsk, tsk. This person is useless. He'll be like this for the rest of his life. He's so narrow-minded. How can he break through? The Divine Bird sighed and shook his head with a look of disappointment. After that, he ran back into Yi Qinghan's body, leaving a group of people looking at each other. Xue Zhehuang actually felt pity for the Divine Master. Yi Qinghan and his spiritual pet were too infuriating. If it were any other expert, they would not be able to endure such humiliation. Not to mention the sect master of the Archaean sect. The elder beside Yi Qinghan wanted to say something but stopped. He did not know what to say for a moment. He was completely stunned by the Divine Bird's despicable behavior. PFFT, ha 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 ha. Xiao Yu was the first one who could not hold it in. She laughed loudly and covered her chest with her jade-like hands. As for the experts from the other 6 realms, they naturally did not give face. How could they not laugh when they saw an overlord being angered to such an extent and not knowing what to do? Ha 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 ha. The auction house was filled with laughter. It was deafening. Yi Qinghan shrugged. Seeing how angry the Divine Master was, he immediately tried to persuade him, Sect Master Xue, don't be so calculative with a feathered beast. Otherwise, wouldn't you be lowering your status and comparing yourself to a feathered beast? Sua Feng. You've gone too far. From today onwards, I'll fight you to the death. I'll make you and your spiritual pet regret this. The Divine Master glared at Yi Qinghan and roared with a hoarse voice. Yi Qinghan curled his lips and returned to his seat. He looked at the elder and said, Senior, can you tell that the sword technique I used was the flowing water sword technique? The elder nodded slightly and said with certainty, I've seen Xiao Renwang before. I've also seen him fight. Although your aura was a little weak, it was indeed the flowing water sword technique. Yi Qinghan smiled proudly. He looked at the metal box and said lightly, "This pseudo-world treasure divine spear is mine. Does anyone have any objections?" Chapter 1354. Does anyone have any objections? It was a simple sentence, but it was filled with an irresistible will. His black hair fluttered without any wind, and his deep eyes scanned the crowd. The experts of the 7 realms all looked at him with hostility, but they couldn't offer a better price to move the owner of the divine spear. Just then, a masked man in black appeared on the roof. His cloak was made of special materials, and it was obvious that he didn't want to expose his identity. As long as Marshal Zhua can promise that the hidden dragon state will forever be a holy land, and that the divine nation will not interfere with anything in the hidden dragon state, you can get this divine spear. The masked man's voice was deep and hoarse. Yi Qinghan looked at the masked man in black and nodded without hesitation. He replied, "Yes, not only can I promise, but so can the 9th Emperor. The hidden dragon state will be a holy land in the divine nation, just like the god of Wealth City. You and your family can develop freely." Xue Zhehuang looked at the divine spear with anticipation and nodded in agreement with Yi Qinghan. "Thank you, Marshal Zhua, thank you, 9th Emperor." The masked man in black bowed emotionally. Yi Qinghan looked at the masked man in black. From the energy ripples on his body, he could tell that he was at most at the peak of the paramount realm. Furthermore, he and the 9th Emperor were bowing to him, so he could tell that this masked man had yet to reach the peak of the paramount realm. He was probably at the upper or lower level. If that's the case, then it's a deal. The elder from the Mu family said in a low voice. The deal was made, and some people didn't even have time to bid. The Lich King, who was determined to get it, looked at Yi Qinghan with a murderous look. He seemed to hate him more than the Divine Master. An existence like the Lich King needed a pseudo-world artifact too much. Pseudo-world artifacts were rare, so rare that other than the Divine Sect, even the Lich King didn't have one. The royal family might have a pseudo-world artifact, but unless the royal family was about to be destroyed, they wouldn't use it. As for the Bien family's Inshir's pot, who knew where they got it? Unfortunately, it had become Yi Qinghan's wedding dress. Yi Qinghan's silhouette flickered and appeared beside the iron box. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the iron box. It weighed millions of pounds, but he held it as if it was an ordinary iron box. It was hard to imagine how ridiculous his physique was. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan lifted the lid of the metal box. The divine spear inside the box released a divine light that shot up into the sky. The pressure spread out in all directions. The weaker paramount gods were unable to withstand the pressure, and even the elders of the Mu family were sent flying. Thud! Thud! Yi Qinghan took a few steps back. His face was pale, but he was filled with excitement. His big hand held the divine spear tightly. The power of the world was vast and mighty, causing the ground to tremble and the room to shake. Everyone was forced to release their divine power to resist. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan gently waved his hand, and the void was torn apart. His spear was held vertically behind him. The 2-meter-long heavy spear matched with his vigorous body, and his black hair fluttered in the wind. He was like an immortal, attacking everyone's line of sight. Pa pa pa. That half-step absolute realm expert from the Mu family couldn't help but clap his hands. He smiled and said, "A hero is matched with a beauty, and a heavy spear is given to a hero. Little brother, you are a dragon among men with an imposing appearance. Just based on this aura, this old man feels that you are worthy of owning this divine spear." To be praised by a half-step absolute realm expert was simply a great honor. Even the Lich King would be excited for half a day. However, Yi Qinghan remained calm. He lowered his head slightly and bowed, "Senior, what do you think the name of this spear should be? You are the owner of the spear. You can name it." This old man also wants to know what kind of name is worthy of such a spear. The old man from the Mu family stared at Yi Qinghan and said with anticipation. Then this junior will embarrass himself. I will call it world-piercing. What does senior think? Yi Qinghan smiled. World-piercing. Ha ha ha. Little friend, you are too arrogant and domineering. Do you want to break the 9-world sky? The old man from the Mu family laughed wildly. Yi Qinghan smiled faintly and was a bit shy. It could be considered that he agreed with the old man from the Mu family. Arrogant and domineering. Everyone shouted angrily. Especially the other 6 worlds and the Lich King. Their eyes were no longer filled with hostility, but killing intent. It is always good to have ambition. Everyone, calm down. Marshal Zhua, please keep the world-piercing spear. We will continue to auction the other materials. The old man from the Mu family said calmly. His smile made everyone quiet down. No one dared to retort. This was the strongest existence that appeared so far. No one dared to be impudent. Even Yi Qinghan had to be respectful. Otherwise, if the old man from the Mu family wanted to kill him, it would be as easy as crushing an ant. Yi Qinghan merged with the world-piercing spear and stepped back into his private room. At this moment, his aura was even stronger. His words and actions carried the pressure of the world-piercing spear. His use of the power of the world was even more detailed. His words and actions carried the power of the world. With 2 great pseudo-world weapons, in addition to the 2 from before, the insane sect had 4. It could be said that they had a strong foundation. Now, as long as there were no complete realm cultivators, the insane sect could destroy any terrifying power, including the Lich King. Since no one could get a pseudo-world weapon, they had to settle for the next best thing. They wanted to get the materials and create their own pseudo-world weapon. Xiaoya moved her body restlessly. She only needed 3 materials to create a pseudo-world weapon. This time, there were 5 auctioned. She was determined to get them. As long as she had a pseudo-world weapon, she could still look down on everyone and ignore existences like the Lich King. So what if the Divine Master had a foundation? Yi Qinghan was extremely calm. He did not seem to be interested in these materials. However, Xue Jiuhuang was very interested. His eyes shone with a light. Yi Qinghan glanced at him from the corner of his eye. His face was expressionless. Xue Jiuhuang was not one of them. He might be able to get one of the materials, but the rest had to be obtained by Xiaoya or bought by him. The first material is a meteorite from the outer realm. It contains the supreme diamond gravel. It cannot be refined without a top-grade divine flame. Everyone, do your best. There are not many existences who can create a pseudo-world weapon. Otherwise, you will feel powerless when you get the materials. The elder from the Mu family walked out from the back with a gloomy face. He did not look good and his voice changed. Yi Qinghan was caught off guard. He opened the metal box outside the world-piercing spear and was sent flying by the aura. He had lost all face. Yi Qinghan's consciousness entered Xiaoya's sea of consciousness again. He said indifferently, "You will fight for it. I have offended so many people. Even if they do not need it, they will still fight for it." The Mu family elder glanced at Yi Qinghan and said in a muffled voice, "The starting price of the meteorite is 500,000 snow-step divine stones. Each bid must be no less than 1,000. Yi Qinghan smiled apologetically. He then looked away and pretended not to see anything. He ran to the side and took out the divine spear to play with. He would occasionally release his aura to attract everyone's attention. Xiaoya was bidding while Yi Qinghan was covering for her. This made the Lich King and others unable to calm down. 550,000 snow-step divine stones. Xiaoya called out a high price. Boom! Yi Qinghan activated the world-piercing spear. His aura enveloped everyone. It was as if he was going to attack and kill. Everyone in the room was furious. Chapter 1355. Yi Qinghan would activate the world-piercing spear from time to time. His divine might carried a chilling aura that enveloped everyone, but he did not attack. Everyone looked at him with dissatisfaction, but he was playing with the divine spear thoughtfully. From time to time, he would discuss the strengths and weaknesses of the divine spear with the divine bird. His serious expression made everyone even angrier. "What are you looking at? Haven't you seen such a handsome divine bird before?" The divine bird stared at everyone and said majestically, "Humph." The Lich King snorted and pressed his palm on the table. His soul turned into a sharp sword and pierced into the divine bird's sea of consciousness. The soul attack of a pseudo-world lord was definitely terrifying. If one was caught off guard, it could even kill an expert who had just entered the supreme realm. "Ah!" The divine bird cried out miserably and fell on the table with its legs facing the sky. There was no sign of life. Its pure white feathers instantly dimmed. Its eyes were wide open as if it died with grievances. "Lecherous snake! You're courting death." Yi Qinghan was furious. He held the divine spear tightly and his aura enveloped the Lich King. Terrifying battle aura was emitted, causing his black hair to flutter. He looked like a mad demon. "Stop! This is an auction house, not a place for you to behave atrociously." The expert from the Mu clan appeared again. He looked at the divine bird's lifeless eyes and its dim feathers. "It should be dead." He frowned at the Lich King and said coldly, "It's not that you don't know that you're not allowed to fight here. But Lich King, you're not giving me any face. I'll ask you to leave now. You can't participate in this auction anymore. It was the one who provoked me first." The Lich King was anxious. Even if he couldn't get the pseudo-world artifact, he could at least get some materials. He might have a chance to forge one. "I said, please leave. Don't make me do it." The old man from the Mu clan shouted coldly. The Lich King immediately withered. His hair stood on end and he felt that his blood and chi were not flowing smoothly. He could only choose to leave. Now that the strongest Lich King had been chased away, the pressure on everyone lessened a lot. However, the room was still cold, and the atmosphere was so cold that it made it hard for people to breathe. The room was completely silent. Yi Qinghan stretched out his hand to check if the divine bird was still alive. At this moment, the divine bird quickly got up and beat its chest with its wings. It said in relief, "Oh my God, you scared this divine bird to death. Luckily, I pretended to be dead and escaped." At this moment, the corner of Yi Qinghan's mouth twitched. He wished he could slap it away. Black lines appeared on the Mu family's elder's forehead. He thought it was dead, so he threw the Lich King out. Who knew that this little bastard was faking its death? Moreover, he had acted so well that he had even fooled himself. Ahem. Yi Qinghan noticed everyone's disdainful looks and the frown on Elder Mu's face. He felt a little embarrassed, so he coughed awkwardly and said, "Please don't laugh at me. It didn't do it on purpose." The divine bird immediately said in a serious tone, "That guy was too strong. I had no choice but to pretend to be dead. Why are you looking at me like that?" Yi Qinghan flew into a rage out of humiliation. He felt that he had lost all his face. He forcefully pulled the divine bird back into his body and smiled. Xiaoye was laughing so hard that she almost couldn't breathe. She even forgot to bid. This was definitely the first time she had seen something like this. However, she was curious as to how the divine bird had escaped the soul attack of the Lich King. She didn't know that the divine bird's soul was definitely powerful. It was basically impossible for an ordinary person to kill it with just their soul. The Mu family's elder looked at everyone innocently. No one bid. He asked several times, but no one responded. Finally, he realized that everyone's attention wasn't on the pseudo-world artifact material at all. Instead, it was on the divine bird. You've already asked 3 times. This meteorite is mine. Xiaoye rushed onto the stage and threw down a yin and yang ring. She put the huge meteorite into the ring and turned to leave. Only then did everyone remember that they were in the middle of an auction. The Mu family's elder's mouth twitched. Such a huge meteorite had been sold for 550,000. It was definitely a low price. However, there was no other way. The deal had been made. It was impossible to take it back now. Helpless, the Mu family's elder could only take out the second pseudo-world artifact material. It was a piece of life wood. It was only the size of a palm, but it contained endless life. However, humans couldn't absorb it. It could only be used as a repair material for pseudo-world artifacts. It was also a necessary material for pseudo-world artifacts. Pseudo-world artifacts had very powerful self-repair abilities, but they weren't omnipotent. Something as abnormal as the feather spirit garment was definitely one of a kind. Once a pseudo-world artifact was damaged by more than 50%, it was basically useless. However, the feather spirit garment was different. As long as its origin wasn't damaged, it could be repaired after a certain amount of time. This life wood is equivalent to the pseudo-world artifact's soul. It is one of the most important materials. The starting bid is 1 million snow step divine stones. Each bid must not be lower than 10,000. The Mu family's elder said in a deep voice. The experts from the true spirit domain, ultimate martial domain, void domain, supreme domain, divine martial domain, and 6 beast domain immediately became alert. Most of them lacked this material. Xiaoye also lacked this material. Thus, everyone began to bid crazily. 1,500,000. 1,500,000. 2 million. In order to obtain the life wood, the various divine kingdoms desperately bid. Every bid was 100,000 or even 500,000. Xiaoye quickly couldn't take it anymore. Hell didn't earn many divine stones. That old fart only wanted to train her. Xiaoye herself wasn't good at making money. Most of the time, she used resources and materials to exchange. 2 million snow step divine stones was her limit. At this moment, she had no choice but to look at Yi Qinghan for help. Yi Qinghan nodded, indicating for her to continue bidding. This time, it was only a secret technique. It wasn't worth much. There were many more in his sea of consciousness. However, most of them were secret techniques of the Great Wasteland domain. He couldn't take them out. 3 million. Soon, everyone shouted out in anger. The bidding reached its climax. Xiaoye, with Yi Qinghan's support, called out 3 million in one go. For a moment, everyone went silent. Even the divine lords didn't dare to bid anymore. If they paid too many snow step divine stones, it would affect the operation of the divine sex inheritance. 3,100,000. Yi Qinghan scanned the crowd. He noticed that a few old fellows' mouths were twitching. Just as they were about to bid, he suddenly raised his hand and raised the price by 100,000. Xiaoye was stunned. She didn't understand what Yi Qinghan wanted to do. Yi Qinghan secretly transmitted, "Continue to raise the price by 30,000. Only then can we obtain the life wood." When Xiaoye heard this, she immediately called out a price of 3,130,000. Yi Qinghan pretended to hesitate, but the others were even more hesitant. This was because Xiaoye's bidding momentum was too strong. It was as if she was determined to obtain it. There was no need to offend a terrifying assassin organization when she couldn't obtain it. After a long while, no one bid. Yi Qinghan struggled for a moment before giving up. In the end, Xiaoye obtained the life wood. Chapter 1356. Out of the remaining 3 true treasure materials, Xiaoya took one. After she obtained 3 materials, she stopped bidding. Yi Qinghan was not interested in these materials because they were too difficult to find. Even if he obtained the last 2 materials, he would have to waste a lot of time to gather all the materials needed for a pseudo-world treasure. It was not worth it. In the end, Yi Qinghan carved the flowing water sword technique on the stone tablet and handed it to the auctioneer of the godly spear. The deal was officially done. As for the hidden dragon state, he gave the order and the hidden dragon state overlord left immediately. However, the prefecture soldiers stayed behind. Yi Qinghan wasn't interested in how he would develop the hidden dragon state. After the auction ended, he looked at Xiaoya and left the auction house with Xue Jiuhuang. As soon as they left the auction house, 2 gloomy killing intents shrouded Yi Qinghan. One of them was the most obvious. The God Lord chased after Yi Qinghan from the auction house. His sharp eyes stared at Yi Qinghan's back. The other one came from outside the city. There was a powerful pseudo-world lord. No one could lock onto Yi Qinghan so quickly. The only pseudo-world lord Yi Qinghan had offended was the Lich King. Yi Qinghan raised his eyebrows and waved his hand. The people from the insane sect gathered. They were all very powerful. As long as they weren't like that old monster from the Mu family, it wouldn't take them much effort to kill an ordinary pseudo-world lord. Plus, Shirgu had a pseudo-world treasure stone brick. Yi Qinghan had 2 pseudo-world treasures. Yi Qinghan's hand shook and the world-piercing spear appeared in his hand. His godly aura soared and the world rumbled. His battle-intent soared. Jiang Jingtian looked at the world-piercing spear and his pupils shrank. He was like a pervert looking at a beauty. He loved it to the bone. His expression that hadn't changed for 10,000 years finally showed some emotion. His handsome and wild face revealed a covetous smile. Yi Qinghan smiled and pushed the world-piercing spear into Jiang Jingtian's hand. He said indifferently, "We've known each other for so long. I don't have much to give. This world-piercing spear is for you." Ah! Jiang Jingtian was dumbfounded. Such a powerful divine weapon might not appear even once in countless epochs, yet Yi Qinghan was actually giving it to him. Boom! Boom! The blood vessels in Jiang Jingtian's body swelled up. The pressure of a Kirin enveloped him and he was filled with a wild nature. His handsome face was filled with joy and gratitude. He wanted to reach out and take it, but he didn't feel too good about it. Yi Qinghan said resolutely, "Drinking strong liquor, treasured spears, I know what kind of weapon suits a person. You and I are brothers, so there's nothing much to say. If you like it, if it suits you, then take it." Jiang Jingtian pursed his lips and smiled. Without any hesitation, he reached out and grabbed the spear. In an instant, he became one with the spear. He was even more imposing than Yi Qinghan. It was as if this spear was born for him. Boom! Jiang Jingtian's aura soared into the sky. He stood upright like a javelin. The world-piercing spear in his hand constantly trembled as if he was extremely excited. When he became one with the spear, the master would be excited. Naturally, the spear would be even more excited. "Thank you." Jiang Jingtian took a deep breath and said to Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan smiled indifferently. He patted Jiang Jingtian's shoulder and said with a smile, "What are you thanking me for? There's still a tough battle ahead." "How can I thank you?" Everyone laughed. They all understood Yi Qinghan. Some words didn't need to be said. Xue Jiuhuang looked at Yi Qinghan's back and suddenly understood what charisma was. Such a person was willing to pay a high price to recruit brothers. That was why he could gather so many people to work for him. He's a descendant of Lord Xiao Lushui. If that's the case, then it's fine. But his ambition is too great. He will either drag the divine nation into eternal damnation or lead the divine nation to rule the 9 worlds. But when that time comes, will the divine nation's power still be in the hands of the royal family? Xue Zhihuang didn't dare to confirm Yi Qinghan's identity, but he didn't dare to offend him now. Yi Qinghan ignored Xue Zhihuang. Now that he had something on Xue Zhihuang couldn't escape. Yi Qinghan frowned and said, "Ninth Emperor, I need your help later. You, Jingtian and a few other brothers will hold back the Lich King. Leave the Divine Lord to me and Shi Gu. This time, we don't need to kill them. We need to at least severely injure them and snatch the pseudo-world weapon from the Divine Lord." It was indeed a little dangerous for a group of supreme gods to deal with a pseudo-world lord. However, Jiang Jingtian had the world-piercing spear and the Lich King didn't. They still had a chance. Moreover, Xiao Yu was supporting them. It would be harder for the Lich King to kill them. Xue Zhihuang looked at the group of people beside Yi Qinghan. Jiang Jingtian alone was a great expert. There was also Li Feng, Mo Li, Tong Tong, Xiao Yu, Xian Yayin and the other seniors of the insane sect. With him, it would be easy to hold back the Lich King. No problem. Xue Zhihuang nodded and said. Let's go out of the city. After saying that, Yi Qinghan led the group out of the city with their divine weapons. The group's aura soared to the sky. It shocked the overlords so much that they didn't dare to block their way. They all retreated to the sides of the official road. The Divine Lord stared at the backs of Yi Qinghan and the others. He clenched his fists and was hesitating if he should make a move. The Heavenly King came to the side of the Divine Lord and asked in a low voice, "Dao brother, are you going to make a move? Take the chance and snatch the pseudo-world weapons from Zhuo Feng's group. You and I will work together. Zhuo Feng's Inshir's pot and Shi Ji's stone brick will be mine. That world-piercing spear will be yours. What do you think?" The Divine Lord asked with a hoarse voice. "This operation will be very dangerous. Don't forget that Xue Zhihuang is still here. He can mobilize the Falcon Squad at any time. Once we are surrounded, even if you have the pseudo-world weapon, you won't be able to survive." The Heavenly King hesitated for a moment. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. I think Xue Zhihuang is also looking for a chance to kill Zhuo Feng. This guy's power is expanding too fast. Xue Zhihuang will definitely be wary of the Zhuo Marshal's residence. I believe that after we make a move, Xue Zhihuang will find a chance to kill us. The Divine Lord revealed an evil smile and followed out with determination. The Heavenly King was dressed in white, but he had an eerie aura that made people feel uncomfortable. His sharp eagle eyes looked at Yi Qinghan's back through the mask. After a long time, he finally chose to follow. The experts from the other 6 realms didn't want to make a move in the Snow Nation's divine realm. Whether it was to fight for the supreme treasure or to kill Yi Qinghan, it wasn't worth it for them. Once they made a move, they would definitely alarm the Supreme Realm Lord. When the time came, the Realm Lord would be angry and kill them with a wave of his hand. The auction house was covered in dark clouds. The sky was pressing down as if doomsday had arrived. At this moment, Si Wu, Di Ling and Ji Sha of Hell quietly appeared in the city and followed Xiao Yu from afar. After Yan Yunbei settled the Snow Emperor's spirit, he returned to the auction house alone. On the street, he bumped into Yi Qinghan and gave him a slight hand gesture, indicating that everything was done. Yi Qinghan glanced at Yan Yunbei and nodded slightly. Looking at Yan Yunbei's disappearing figure, his smile became wider. This time, I want to see if your divine sex foundation can withstand the fury of the Kuang sect. Yi Qinghan's battle intent surged as he looked at the city gate. Even though he knew that the pseudo-world lord was waiting for them, he still rushed out without hesitation. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.